Biden is officially backing away from the mask enforcement on airlines after a court ruling struck it down. Now, the funny thing is, earlier today at the press briefing, Jen Psaki was actually asked about this, and she's like, well, we're still going to recommend it. And when Peter Doocy was like, why would you recommend masks, but here in this room, we don't got to wear them? She's like, are you a doctor, Peter? Are you a doctor? I'm not a doctor. And then Peter, I think he said, and I don't play one, nor do I play one on TV, haha, but it's really funny. That's like going to be the go-to answer now for anything ever in politics, is that you don't actually have any expertise, so you can't answer any questions. But here we go. It's actually big news. Now, apparently, if you want to fly, if you're ready to fly right now, they're saying they're not enforcing it. So it's going to be a shock to a lot of flight attendants and pilots when people all just take their masks off, throw them in the air like it's graduation. I wonder how many people are still going to actually keep their masks on. We got other news, too. Alex Jones reportedly filed for bankruptcy, but he's saying he didn't actually file for bankruptcy. He's filing for Chapter 11 reorganization, but now it's just framing because that's still under bankruptcy laws. But he's saying he's doing this so that the feds can look at his books to see that he's not hiding any money, which is interesting. We'll get into all that stuff. Plus, we got a bunch of crazy stories. Ron DeSantis, he's pulling, Florida pulled a whole bunch of math books because they had critical race theory in them. And the left is freaking out. But the question is, why do math books have critical race theory in them? Anyway, some other interesting news. Jon Stewart's new show has flopped. Good. Go broke. There it is. So we'll talk about all of that. Joining us today is Braxton McCoy.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am a horse trainer, author of this book, The Glass Factory, about getting wounded in Iraq and then coming home and starting over. And I also run this program called The Bunkhouse, where we bring people in and teach them skills, first aid skills, field medical stuff. We take them hunting, backcountry stuff, just kind of like trying to teach the skills that appreciate over time. We're kind of like, almost like the grandpa some people needed to have when they were younger, but just doing it for them as an adult.
Oh, right on. Glad to have you, man. I'll just mention, too, we have a headphone exception for cowboy hats.
That's right.
John Rich last week. And
Thank you.
Today.
God bless you, John.
Right on. And we're hanging out with Brett Dasovic.
How's it going, everybody? I am Brett Dasovic, the host of Pop Culture Crisis. We actually just finished filming the 100th episode today, and that will come out tomorrow. So I hope you guys check that out, and I'm glad to be here.
YouTube.com/popculturecrisis, one of the new shows from Timcast.com.
Yes.
We got Ian.
Hey, everybody. We're back. And it feels good to be home, I'll tell you that. I rolled an 81 if it means anything to you on the 100-sided die, so let's get rolling.
Very cool. I'm very glad to be back here with my familiar cameras. Hopefully I don't make any more camera mistakes or mic mistakes. Hopefully our next trip will be much smoother. I'm really looking forward to that already.
And before we get started, I just want to have a moment of silence for all of our business owners today, because it is tax day, and I'm sure all of you have been collectively punched in the gut when your accountants came back and said, oh, here's what you owe. And you're like, oh, man, it's a brutal day, isn't it? It's funny because, I'm dreading tax day because, you've got to set money aside. And then when my accountant comes back and they're like, there's the damage. And I'm just like, wow, think about how much stuff we could do. But now I'm going to give all that money to the government so they can go blow up kids and stuff like that. And I'm just like, there's a bunch of stuff they do wrong with our tax dollars, but hey, how about that? Before we get started, my friends, let's shout out our sponsor, BioTrust's Ageless Multi-Collagen. Just head over to StrongerBonesAndLife.com and you can pick up your supply of Ageless Multi-Collagen at 51% off. This is the stuff you need for your joints, your fingernails, your skin to be healthy and young. Many of you may be saying, how is the Tim look so young? But he's 36 years old. Why? It's in fact, actually, I have no idea why, but I do love this stuff. I put it in my drinks. Go to StrongerBonesAndLife.com. You'll get a 60-day money-back guarantee. The healthy aging support of collagen in ideal forms. 5 key types of collagen you need from 4 different sources. For every order today, BioTrust will donate a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor through their partnership with NoKidHungry.org. To date, BioTrust has provided over 5 million meals to hungry kids. Please help BioTrust hit their goal of 6 million meals this year. It is non-GMO and free of artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, and sweeteners, and free of gluten, antibiotics, and RBGH and RBST. Nearly no odor or taste, unlike bone broth and other collagen supplements. No clumping. You get free shipping with every order, free VIP live health and fitness coaching from BioTrust's team of expert nutrition and health coaches for life with every order, and the free e-report, the 14 foods for amazing skin with every order. Thanks so much, BioTrust. Again, Stronger Bones and Life. Pick it up. If, look, I skate all the time. I was skating today, and I'm jumping in the air, and Carter was skating. He was falling all over the place. It's a good thing. We've got this stuff we can mix into our drinks, help keep our bones strong. But don't forget, If you want to support us directly, head over to timcast.com and become a member. In the top right, you can see sign up. Sign up. As a member, you get access to exclusive members-only segments of this show. We will have that members-only show coming up at 11 p.m. tonight at timcast.com. It's Monday through Thursday. But here's the important thing. All of our journalists, they are working every day to fact-check and verify stories and make sure we're giving you legitimate, up-to-date information, real, true stories, and we're breaking down the manipulations from the media. We do our best. We're not perfect. But we don't sell these stories. We just put them up. That means in order to keep these journalists employed, we rely on membership. So basically what we do is this show, we offer the members only stuff. You guys sign up for that. We use those funds to hire a bunch of journalists to do this work. Hopefully, for many of you, the work is good enough. We have on-the-ground reporters like Elad Eliyahu and working on more stuff, looking to expand a documentary. So just keep that in mind, too, that your membership is keeping all of these journalists employed. And if you think that news is important and the way we are presenting the news and reporting the news is important, your membership goes a long way and we greatly support it. Share these stories if you think we're doing a good job of reporting them. Now, let's jump to the first big story, which is not from timcast.com. It's from the Daily Mail. Biden administration says TSA will not enforce masks on planes due to a court ruling after Psaki said, "I'm not a doctor," when asked why face coverings are still recommended. So this is it right now. We have a quote here, I suppose. Today's court decision means CDC public transportation masking order is not in effect at this time, an admin official said. I don't know what that means. If you're maybe you're in an airport right now and you're listening on your headphones, you're about to board your plane, and they're telling you still got to wear your mask. I honestly have no idea. Maybe you can show them this and be like, "Hey, I'm watching live right now. They're saying I don't got to wear a mask." Well, that's what the TSA said, but these private airlines might still want to enforce masks, so we'll see. But I just think it's absolutely hilarious that we're at this point now where during the White House press briefing, Jen Psaki is like, regardless of the federal court ruling, we're still recommending masks. And then when Peter Doocy says, why are you recommending masks if we don't have to wear masks here in the White House? And her answer was, "I'm not a doctor. Are you a doctor?" And it's like, that's the go-to response from now on, right? For anything.
You can also read it like, "Why are you saying I still need to wear masks?" And she's like, "Because I'm not a doctor, and I can." So like,
yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, that's gross.
Because I have no idea what I'm talking about. That's why.
Yeah.
It will be the go-to answer for everything. Every time something happens in the economy, I'm not an economist. I have no idea. Anytime the jobs report enters up, lower than normal, I'll be like, I don't know. I'm not a job recruiter. I have no idea.
Why are gas prices so high? Are you a petroleum engineer?
No.
I'm not a petroleum engineer. Okay.
Yeah, I think it points to how they're all technocrats at heart, though. Like that's like the whole thing is this pivot to expertise is because they want to control and manage everything top down. So they're like, well, I'm not the person that can manage that top down. I'm just like a part of this technocratic team, and that's not like my position or whatever. But
was there like a memo that went out when Ketanji Brown Jackson was asked to define woman, and she's like, "I'm not a biologist," and then all of a sudden some Democrat strategist went, "Oh, that's it.
That's the ticket."
And then he's like, he writes the memo up. From now on, this is what we do. I am not insert specialty. But how do you guys feel about the masks? I mean, what does this mean? Is this the end of tyranny, or is this like
it's
a
a
fleeting
step in
thing?
the right direction? The United States it's not here because of a fake trash constitution or country or people. We did this for real to get to this place, and this is an example of the American law working. I think masks personally are disgusting. I don't know if that's what you were asking about, how I feel about masks. Feeling the sweat and stick on my face after 5 hours on a plane of breathing, talking about recirculated air. Yeah. I just could never fathom or really understand how that should have been better for me.
Well, Ian came upstairs and he was like, "Masks, no more masks."
So I was like dancing in for real.
Right.
Like teachers letting you go home with no homework or something.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It really feels like that, and that's silly. That's like they're gaslighting us to feel like that. I think gaslight's the right word, because I shouldn't be celebrating back to normalcy. I should just be expecting it and ready for it.
I mean, ultimately, you got to remember this is going to be enforced by a TSA employee, and those people are, on average, retarded. Can I use that word?
I don't know. I think they consider it a slur now.
Okay, my bad.
It means
they're
in general.
R slurs. like one time
mentally deficient.
There you go.
Or
okay, there you go. I like that.
It's more. It sounds smarter.
It's a scientific term for behavior, though. Like retard, the word itself is to mean slow.
Yeah,
and you can if you don't call people names and stuff. Directly,
I meant the slur, but
I think, just real quick, I think mentally deficient is more offensive.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it's
because they're too dumb to get it.
Well, no, it's just like you're you're trying to make it sound smarter, or like there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway.
one time I was flying back home from San Jose. I was at a speaking gig, and I had a T-shirt on that had a grenade on it, and this dude at TSA was like, "Do you think you should be wearing that to the airport?" I was like, "Excuse me?" He said, "Do you think that's appropriate?" And I said, "Do you think you should be giving me fashion advice? Like, aren't you supposed to be like looking at my bag or something?" Like, what the?
Can't say bomb on an airplane.
TSA is interesting. I'm from the pre 9/11 era, and there was no TSA. It felt very authoritarian and weird when they created that after 9/11. And then when you find out there weren't weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East, and what the heck is this war on terror really? Like, why do we still have a TSA? I don't think.
Yeah, now you got grandmas taking their belts off because we decided to, invade Iraq or whatever.
The funniest thing about the airport thing is I was flying a lot when I came out here, when I moved out here for work, was the hilarious part was like when you look at all the signs that say you have to wear this, you have to wear that, they all had like sponsored by Purell. Sponsored. It was like is that not the most like corporatist thing you've ever seen? Where it's like all your signs that tell you have to do this, behave this way at the airport. None of it mentioning COVID or anything like that at all.
I just like to imagine that there's like some the president of Purell or whatever company is. He's like his hair's all disheveled and he's going through the books and he's like he calls his wife and he goes, "Honey, we're not going to have Christmas dinner. Sales are just really bad." And then he looks at the TV and it's like COVID lockdown. He goes, "Oh," and then he throws the papers in the air and he opens one and goes, "Get to work, boys. We're back in business."
Yeah.
Now he's like super rich and he's got like a Scrooge McDuck swimming through money.
That was one of the memes. It says the creator or the owner of Purell right now. And it's the guy's got like 9 gold chains on and a bunch of, and a ring on each finger. It's like that's exactly what it is. Them and whoever invented whoever's like producing the masks.
China.
Yeah.
So,
Wasn't the My Pillow guy making masks and they still hate him?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he shifted production to start making masks.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Masks are bad now. We can't support anything he's doing."
because I'm from Minnesota and it was really funny. Like people from Minnesota just hated that guy for no reason. They have no idea why. They've just been told that they have to hate him.
We got to pull up this tweet.
It's a great tweet.
And let me just preface this by saying, I don't normally care to mock people who are just not relevant, but this woman is apparently an elected representative.
She is.
An elected official.
Yep.
This woman, Lindsay Sabadosa, says, "Today a federal judge called it overreach for U.S. health officials to require masks on airplanes and other public transit. And no matter how you feel about masks, you should be really, really concerned that the courts are effectively taking away power from the federal government."
Should we now?
Okay, hold on there a minute. It was a federal judge who issued a ruling on a federal mandate. This is more of an, I guess if you think that the courts are taking away the power from the federal government, if she's discussing some kind of like Ouroboros, the snake eating itself,
Yeah.
maybe, but I think she has no idea.
I
what
think
she's
she means
about.
taking power away from the executive branch as it was intended, and that's what we have the separation of powers for.
Don't be charitable, Ian.
That's my job.
Like this is the thing that I think we often do is Joe Biden will do something and we'll be like, well, maybe he really
hold
meant
on,
this.
man.
And
I fully
tired.
agree. This is a foolish and irrational tweet. It doesn't make any sense. And she's all sorts of names. No, I don't have anything against it. But that's a dumb tweet that is wrong. The court's job is to strip away power from the executive branch if it goes too far.
Well, it's to interpret the law. Progressive Democrat and state representative, 1st Hampshire District, I believe it's in Massachusetts.
That's correct.
And it's just, oh my stars and garters.
So I looked her up, and she's also, before she's a politician, it says she's an activist, and I was like, yeah, that checks out.
Well, look, I want to say, I mean no ill will towards this woman. She said nothing mean to me. She just doesn't know what she's talking about. And so the first thing I always like to do is just say, hey, you were wrong. You should fix that. I don't want to rag on her for being, incorrect about this or not understanding how the government works. But I will say, while we try to be nice and respectful, because she has not, maybe she's talked about me in the past. I have no idea. But if she's said nothing mean to me, I don't want to be mean to her. I would just say I have serious questions about her ability to work in government if she doesn't understand what federal courts are and what they do. That is a more professional critique. Right.
Yeah. That's
Trying to keep things respectful, I guess.
Isn't the whole progressive claim that they're for the people and power of the people and all this, and everything that they tweet or say or whatever is all about the power of the government?
No, I got to stop you there. I think progressives are authoritarian, and I'm pretty sure they've always been. Now,
I agree with that.
But I don't think they claim to be for the people.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Some of them may, because it's probably from authoritarian to libertarian to a certain degree, but typically progressive just refers to doing what we think is right for the sake of progress. So these are people who in the past were eugenicists. I don't think the progressive movement has ever been particularly we want to protect all of the people. It's more like, how do we control the system better?
Yeah, and maybe I'm making a mistake of using like AOC as the avatar of progressivism, because like with her, she's just always talking about the people, the people. But in practicality or in reality, it's always about more power consolidation.
Well, yeah, tankies, communists and stuff, they're saying we're going to help the people by force.
Right.
And that's kind of like AOC. I'm surprised people still defend her. It's remarkable. There was that guy, what's his name? Chris, I think his name is, the union guy in New York, who started a union at the Amazon factory. They fired him, and then he started a union. Very successful. Tucker Carlson had him on, and he's busted his ass to get this done, to push back against one of the most. I think Amazon is evil, terrible company, but we're all addicted to it. And AOC is nowhere to be found. And then when he wins, when the warehouse votes to unionize, AOC's all tweeting like, "Yeah, we did it," and he's just like, "What? Where have you been?"
Right.
Chris Smalls is his name.
Yeah. Good for him,
Smalls,
man.
Yeah.
Amazon, Russell Brand just had a video that came out yesterday about like Amazon has like an internal messaging service in there, and they're like censoring words, like you can't say certain phrases like union or bathroom break. And it's just like, is that not the most authoritarian thing ever now? It's like they want to like reward you by having like kind of like how you have like likes on Instagram and stuff like that. So it's like you don't want to get a raise. You want to get your coworkers to give you likes on your internal messaging service app for your company that doesn't let you talk about bathroom breaks and doesn't allow you to unionize because what did they say? They spent $93 million on anti-union lobbyists or something in the same year.
Yeah, I'm looking at TheVerge.com. Some of the words that Amazon's banned with that app: master, slave, injustice, ethics. You can't say the word ethics.
Can't say the word ethics.
Some of them are really funny. Some of them are,
Fairness.
you can't say diversity.
Unfair.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Well, okay, it's all right then.
That's weird, yeah.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden, what the hell? I love Bezos.
All right, well, let's rag on Jen Psaki a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have this story from The Independent. Psaki says, is how you say? Is her name Psaki? Is it Saki?
Saki bomb.
Saki bomb. Says Peter Doocy sounds like a stupid son of a B.
Yeah.
Or keep it family friendly. Because of Fox's questions, Biden caught on hot mic in January calling Doocy a stupid SOB over inflation question, and then Psaki just comes out and says it. I just want to point out, I was watching Peter Doocy question Jen at the White House press briefing today, and I was offended at how bad she was at this. Because I've praised her in the past as being a good spin doctor, because, Biden will do something just horrifyingly bad, or he'll just like fall asleep in public or something. I'm kidding, by the way. But and she'll find a way to spin it. And I'm like, yeah, she's good. I mean, she's doing what she does. But today it was just like, wow.
And,
well, let me explain.
Yeah.
She was asked by Peter Doocy, why do you recommend masks when we don't have to? And her response was, I'm not a doctor. Are you a doctor? You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. And I'm like, Jen, like, wow, this one's really easy. You just say airplanes are smaller with recirculated air.
Yeah.
I was like, you couldn't even just say that to Peter Doocy? I was like, wow.
Yeah.
She was not good at this. There were a couple other things that came out, and she was bad. But the interesting thing here, I suppose, is that she's reportedly going to MSNBC. So here she is. It's during a taping of Pod Save America.
Oh, yeah.
She was asked if Mr. Doocy was a stupid SOB or if he just acted like one on TV. She said he works for a network that provides people with questions that nothing personal to any individual, including Doocy, but might make anyone sound like a stupid SOB. That's really amazing that the only real questions that come out of that briefing, okay, it's not fair, but 90% of the real questions come from Peter Doocy. There was one guy I saw asking some good questions. But I'm sitting there watching this briefing, and I'm just like, has there ever been a point in our lifetimes where the White House press briefing revealed any relevant or important information? Or are we all just recognizing it's theater, and whether it be Sean Spicer or Jen Psaki, they're going to say whatever they have to spin. They're not going to tell you the truth. For once, I'd like someone to come out with like a scotch, and it's like, just Donald Trump or Biden, and he's like swirling it, and they're like, what are we doing in Yemen? Making a lot of money. We're selling weapons to the Saudis, and they're blowing up villages, but good for the economy. Next question. Syria? Ooh, oil. Well, we're trying to build a pipeline. What's next? And I'm just like, wow, but they're not going to do that.
I would love to see inside of Kayleigh McEnany's big book that she used to carry with her. I would love to see what's in there.
Okay, I got to take that back. Yes.
She's great.
That was epic.
She's great.
She had the big book. And whenever the press would say something, she'd be like, and she'd like reference, you're full of it. Okay, that was actually substantive.
Yeah.
That maybe wasn't giving us real answers about the administration, but it was exposing to the American people how the media was totally full of it.
Yeah, when we talk about how she is good, I think that's come up in the past, that she's good at her job. I'm like, well, you can be good at your job and be evil if your job is evil. Like Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's minister of propaganda, was good. But so instead of using the word good,
no.
say effective.
Say he did it. Don't say he was good. Say he was
effective at his job, which was evil. And so is Jen Psaki sometimes. If she's lying to people, that's evil. You could say she's doing a public good by lying to people because some of the information is too dangerous. Like the CIA is a secretive organization on purpose. But I don't think I don't know. What do you think about it?
If there is any man on the planet who is the easiest to take out of context and make a montage of just 4 or 5 things, Ian.
Yes.
Ian,
Thank you, Tim. You recognize my greatness.
You need your own Jen Psaki.
Yeah,
Thanks, dog.
You, do.
You need to hire
I am my own Jen Psaki.
No, but the issue is, and Ian made a good point just now that Goebbels,
Joseph Goebbels or something
he
like
was
that.
effective, and it was terrifying. But when you say that when
he was good at his job and he was evil.
You said he was good.
Yeah, but I kind of got diverted the conversation.
And I'm like, you got to make sure you finish that thought.
He was effective. So were the Nazis at what they were trying to accomplish, but they weren't good. And so you can look at what Jen's doing. I mean, she's just bad at her job and also doing. I don't know if I want to claim she's doing evil, but I want to have hope for the American government. But sometimes I think like a little transparency goes a long way.
They're checked out, I think.
They're all evil. I mean, they've been forcing masks on little kids in airplanes, kicking families off because a 2-year-old won't wear their mask, child suicide rates are through the roof right now. Drug addiction's up through the roof. Everyone who pushes this is evil. I'm totally fine with using that word. They're good at being evil, I guess, or effective at being evil.
I agree, and I want to elaborate on that. When you have a machine that says 2-year-olds must wear masks, and we're like, okay, we get it. But then you get these videos, like even people willing to be like, we want to be peaceful. We don't want confrontation. You get these videos where they put the mask on the baby and the baby takes it off, like literal baby. And then they're like, off the plane. And I'm like, dude, when you have become this machine that doesn't care about people, you have become evil. And I've talked about it before. I can't stand what has become of the U.S. court system. It's been this way to varying degrees, but it's getting worse in that I get pulled over once. I wasn't speeding. Cop walks up to me with a ticket and he says, sign there. And I was like, I wasn't speeding. He goes, I don't care. Tell it to a judge. And I was like, now I got to take off work to go to a judge. I go to the judge. He goes, I don't care. Cop said you were speeding. Pay the fine or, fight it. And I'm like, okay. We've become extremely rigid because we don't know or care about each other. And this is one of the big challenges. The way we use, when this country's founded, we had 2 million people. You didn't have police. You had local militia. So if somebody stole something, it's like, round up the boys. We're gonna go catch that guy who stole something. And then you'd have to go to the courts, and the courts were part of the community. Everybody knew each other, and they'd all talk it out. And it's like, that guy who stole it, that's John's son. And it's like, oh man, John, what do you got to say for your kid? And then they talk about it. Now it's like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't even know what his name is. Now there's so many people and it's so dense. We've just become rigid and mechanized almost.
I see ups and downs to both, because if you know the judge and then you commit a crime and the judge is like, I know him, just let him off. That's also bad. But if the judge has no idea who you are and they don't take your humanity into account at all, then that's also kind of bad.
I agree, but I think of it like this still exists in small town America where if you live in a small town and you're speeding, let's say a 16, 17-year-old kid is speeding, and the deputy pulls him over. He already knows who it is. So he's not worried about getting shot or anything. And he walks up and he's like, Jimmy, why you speeding? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Dan. And he's like, I'm going to see your dad at the bar later today, and I'm going to tell him you were speeding. And he's like, please don't. And he's like, I'm let you off with a warning, but I'm telling your dad. Like, that's way more effective social repercussions as opposed to like pay the $35 or pay the $50. For a lot of people, that $50 is devastating, but they're like, I don't care. You know, so what? I'll not pay the ticket, or I'll fight it, or whatever. Having that personal connection, I think, is good because it holds people to account because they're scared of people they know and love getting mad at them.
I think you're right about that. And there's also just that there's too darn many laws.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So we've got so many people going through the system all the time. It almost has to be mechanical and expedited. You really can't add the human element in if you've got, let's say you're a judge and you've got a judge on 50 cases in a day or whatever. How serious can you take the individual in each of those? I mean, there's only so many minutes in a day. Right?
Yeah, they're especially not even just judges, but prosecutors. They're only going to see you as a number or as a way to advance their career, and it's almost not even like I'd like to say it's on them, but a career-oriented person who goes into a field like that, they're going to be predisposed to looking at people that way, and that's just how they've chosen to get ahead with their career. They just happen to take a career that puts other people's lives in the balance each and every day.
Yeah, then you have to ask yourself why they chose that job, and that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
I pulled up just like weird laws. The one of them is like bingo games can't last more than 5 hours in North Carolina. You can't sniff glue with the intent to get high from it in Indiana.
What?
Can't
But
have,
you can
How
sniff
can they
it.
gauge
This is
it?
America.
can't have sex with living fish in Minnesota.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I might actually support that
Oh my
one.
God,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's not a weird law. That's a good one.
That's the word living is a weird word, though, right?
It's there was like a song where they referenced that, and I was like, that can't be real, can it? And then I don't know if they've since repealed that just to say any fish, perhaps. But
my
yes,
gosh.
that was a
What
thing.
the heck?
This is a great metaphor talking about the machine. We were talking last night about how machines are very dangerous and we've kind of become enslaved to them. They're very intelligent and we can build their intelligence, but they have no emotion. Humans have emotion. That's why we enslave the machine to work for us and to outsource our intelligence. At what level does a society become a machine? Like a small town, it's all about emotion. Who you know, your kids, their kids. Then all of a sudden at some point it's like, just fill out the paperwork. You don't even have to look at the guy's face. Like what, 60,000 people? 1,600 people?
Yeah. You remember that movie Office? What was it? Office Space?
Yeah.
And they take
yeah.
the printer out and beat the tar out of it or whatever. You are the printer.
Oh, that's the technocratic dream.
Yeah, I just think that fundamentally that movie is about being caught up in a mindless, numbing job that's functioning a lot like a bureaucracy, and every level of justice system is a mindless, numbing bureaucracy. So when you go in there, you're the printer, man.
And printers are still worthy of that. Like we have a printer here that's just—they're all awful. Like it's the only technology that hasn't expanded at all. Every printer is still a hassle to use all
what's
the
up
time.
with that?
Did you guys ever have that black printer ink explode on you when you're trying to change it?
It's,
That's crazy.
It's like there's like a rule against making them better. They're like it has to be a hassle, and it's just nobody wants to create a better printer.
I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe lasers. Maybe we can just have lasers do a back image on a paper or something. It's probably already created.
Yo, let's talk about Alex Jones.
Oh yeah.
We got the story from Timcast.com. Update: Alex Jones disputes widespread claims that InfoWars is filing bankruptcy. Quote, we are filing a Chapter 11 reorganization so that the federal government can come in and look at our books, Jones said. Now that, you got to love technically the truth, the best kind of the truth. The truth is Alex Jones did file for Chapter 11, which is under bankruptcy laws. I suppose the fair way to phrase it is that he's disputing the idea that they're broke. He says, quote, I am not filing bankruptcy. InfoWars is not filing bankruptcy. We are filing a Chapter 11 reorganization so that the federal government can come in and look at our books to see that we do not have $16 million in a secret bank account. We do not have $5 million even. We have about $3 million that is necessary in order to operate. We are what the mainstream media truly fears. Honest, independent media, said Jones. This filing is strategic to allow me to pay my creditors and remain transparent. That is a form of bankruptcy. I think, however, the media is trying to frame it like they're broke and destitute. And most people think bankruptcy means you're out of money.
I'll give you an example. I searched Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and one of the first news articles came up from NBC. Alex Jones Infowars files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. It's a form of protection. Then I click on the article. The title's been changed. Alex Jones's Infowars files for bankruptcy following Sandy Hook lawsuits. So it's like they printed the article as it was really happening, and then they're like, not scandalous enough. Let's make him look bad. Bring up Sandy Hook. Let's get him.
No, they wanted buzz terms so that it would get more clicks.
Right.
That's what they do. And there's something they do at news organizations, media outlets, called A/B testing, where they actually, this is fascinating, they can publish an article with multiple headlines in different regions to see which one does better in real time and then switch it all out. Not only that, but a headline, newspapers do this too. This is the crazy thing. You look at like New York Times. I don't know if the New York Times does it, but you'll look at like the California edition versus the Texas edition versus the Utah edition, and they'll use different headlines to sell papers because they know.
I think Time Magazine actually made a different person of the year for different countries, I think, at some point. You guys remember that?
No, I don't know.
No.
I'll look into that as we're talking.
And that's why they don't like Alex Jones.
That's it.
I'm going to be honest. If he is going bankrupt, I get it because everything he talked about for like the last 20 years happened. So he's just like nothing to ramble about because people are like, yeah, man.
We do have that
You're right.
job.
People really are, the frogs really are.
Well, so the frogs thing was funny. I was on, first let me just say, when it comes to Alex, he reads the news a lot. And then he talks all about this, and sometimes he'll find something and take it in the wrong direction. So that's why when he gets things right, we don't believe it. We're like, there's no way that's true. Like when he was here and he was like, we're eating cloned beef, and I was like, no, we're not. It's like, Google it, and I did, and it's like, we're actually eating cloned. Okay, wow, I didn't believe him. So there's a lot of crazy things you think are crazy. Turns out he was right. But I will say, he's absolutely wrong to talk about Sandy Hook the way he did, and this is. I would say, look, if you defame someone, you get held to account. When the big media companies went after the Covington kids, well, they get sued and they're going to pay out their settlement. Good. Alex Jones should not have been talking about private individuals making accusations about him like this. He did not have the proof to make these claims.
Yeah, and I look at Alex Jones as like a pro wrestling of media, just pure entertainment. Like I find him entertaining and fun. I mean, I don't like watch his show, but I watch pretty much whenever he goes on something like your show or Rogan or something. So I can see how he could slip into this, but you're totally right, especially once you start going after the parents of a dead child. You kind of deserve what you get at that point.
Yep.
He's been pretty transparent about that he was wrong. That's something. If he's still holding on like, oh, no, then I'd be like, you know what? I don't even want this guy. But the fact that he's open and like, yeah, I screwed up big time and he's paying his dues, that's the first step.
Well,
man.
so look, he said he was wrong. He apologized. He offered to settle $120K to each of the families. And they said something like the settlement offer was an attempt to avoid his public reckoning. And I'm like, is that what this is about? Because if he already admitted he's wrong and apologized and then offered to pay you out, I think you've won.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? Well, they want a perp walk. They want a public, event. And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of feel like CNN settled and I'm satisfied. Like, I don't like CNN. I'm never going to like them. But they lose. They go to the Covington kids and they're like, we lose. When that happened, we were all like, yeah, like there we go, we move on.
Best thing that came out of this is that he uses research now. When he's working, he has like 16 papers at him. When he comes on the show, he has a bunch of documents ready to go. He doesn't stray off his topic. He doesn't stray off his research unless you want to have fun with him. But
he came here and he's like, I got all the research, the proof, and he hands it to me, and it was just Infowars.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this is you.
I went to Sandy
Alex
Hook.
Jones.
I actually went up there that day. I was in Connecticut working with mines, and the shooting happened, and they were like, "You want to go cover this?" So I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." I don't, So I drove up there, and man, it was somber. This is all anecdotal. It doesn't prove or disprove. I mean, obviously, it was a real thing at this point. But I tried to interview people. No one wanted to talk. They had the media across the street. You could see the fire trucks. I mean, it was really,
Why would anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah.
We just we did a story the other day covering like a documentary filmmaker who's covering Astroworld, the tragedy at Astroworld, and how he's like I am a victim-driven documentary filmmaker who goes around and covers various tragedies like this. And like one of the issues that the dude has is that he has to go and he tries to get interviews with people, and a lot of times he'll push really heavily with these victims' families to try and get them to talk on record, and that comes off, some might want to have that discussion, but other ones have no interest in it. And a good documentary filmmaker, unfortunately, given what he chose for a profession, is going to have to push back if he wants to get the story, but he's just not taking a cue from the fact that he's using such heavy material to do that, and that could be seen as something like this here. So
I wanna dig into this InfoWars claim about this hidden money, right? So Alex is saying the reorganization is so that the feds can see they don't have $16 million in a secret bank account. I don't know if that's what's being argued. There's a new lawsuit, and maybe I'm wrong. Let me see if we can pull this up. A newly filed lawsuit alleges that let me read this. They say after Alex Jones was sued for claiming that what he did about Sandy Hook, the conspiracy theorist conspired to divert his assets to shell companies owned by insiders like his parents, his children, and himself. Reads the lawsuit, which was filed in Austin, Texas, by some of the families. So they're not saying he has a secret bank account. They're saying that he immediately started doing deals, funneling this money away. I don't know how you win a lawsuit like that, to be completely honest. Because, you can sue somebody, but if they haven't lost or owe you anything, they can spend the money however they want. You don't get to just say you're not allowed to spend money anymore because I'm suing you. Imagine if that's how things worked. It's like, I don't want Disney to make a movie, so I'll sue them, and now they can't spend any money. No, that's ridiculous. They started the process of going after Alex. Maybe at that point he said, all right, I'm going to do a bunch of deals to pull all this money out of the company, and that way it'll be with people I know, and then I can file bankruptcy. Maybe, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You didn't win the lawsuit. Then they do. How much money does he have? Well, there you go. Now, going forward in the future, he's going to have to pay you back, but that money's gone.
So InfoWars is getting sued, not Alex Jones. Is that right?
I don't know for sure exactly how they structured the lawsuit. I know that 3 companies, that IW Health, Prison Planet, and InfoWars have filed for Chapter 11. That's what's been reported. Okay. So I think they may be going after him and his companies or something. It's really interesting how this stuff works out. So, typically, I think people have been suing the individuals and the businesses.
Wow.
Yeah. So when journalists do things like, the reporter is on the line and the company's on the line for publishing it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So the reporter isn't allowed protections. I'm just curious about that. The reporter isn't allowed protections just because they're working for the company. They're still responsible in addition to the... Okay.
You're the one who said it. Yeah. And the company's the one who amplified it. So now... But you know what, man? You can sue a ham sandwich. It doesn't mean you're going to win. We'll see how this plays out. I suppose the narrative is that the lawsuit is to silence a prominent, influential person on the right. And that's why they're not satisfied with the settlement offer.
Yeah, they don't want the settlement offer. They want him to come out as the bad guy. Like you said, perp walk. They want humiliation. They want him to look bad, not just pay out for what he did. And that's the difference between actually wanting justice and actually wanting someone to pay. And I think those aren't necessarily always the same thing.
I wonder, though, at this point, Alex has said that they submitted their documents and the courts were like, nope, you didn't give us your documents. And he's like, what do you mean? I gave you everything. And they're like, no, you didn't. And he's like, but we did. And I actually talked with him and his lawyer was like, we gave them everything. They are just saying we didn't. And they put us in default. And it's like, what do we give them if we don't have anything else to give them? It's like when you're being interrogated by someone and like, tell us where the gold is. Like, I don't know. Yes, you do. And they're beating you. Like, what do you do if you don't know? You just lie, I guess. So they're saying they got nothing left to give, but they're being, put in default. So they can't, what are they supposed to do at this point?
Wasn't there a conspiracy theory for a long time that Alex Jones was actually a CIA asset and that he was being used by the CIA?
Oh, there's always that conspiracy theory.
So at least we can put that to bed.
Yeah, there you go.
Or the feds are working with it.
Or it's just they're trying to pull him out.
Clever. Yeah.
Now it's like, we got to get Alex out of there, man. And so like, here's how we're going to do it. And Alex is like, I'm quitting, I resign.
I like the idea of like him being reassigned by the CIA to like the Reykjavik, like a foreign country, like a station chief in some like really far away place because they can't use him here anymore.
I'm good at what I do.
I kind of feel like there's powerful interests at play in a lot of these suits that we've been seeing. It started with Gawker, right? Peter Thiel funds this lawsuit against Gawker and blows it up. Basically.
That was the Hulk Hogan one.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan. And now it's like this is lawfare. It's how it works. I'm kind of just like, Alex Jones is Alex Jones. Everything else doesn't matter. He could do his show on a cell phone. He could be like, okay, you know what? Fine. Shut her down. Start a new company. And then just talk into a camera. What are they going to do? Are they going to...
How much do you think, I mean, you're in a position to answer this. How much do you think being removed from Twitter and YouTube and those other platforms is affecting his business?
I think it probably knocked him down, the majority of the money he was making. But here's what people should understand. Alex Jones got started on, I think, public access TV, and then he made internet video documentaries, and I think he was selling them. All I know is people were sharing them for free. And then he launched his website. Before YouTube and social media existed, he was well off and running this big company. Then you get YouTube, you get Twitter, you get Facebook, and he gets even bigger. He loses all of that. He's back. He's actually still doing better than he was before social media because he created Band.video. He's got his own video player now. He gets hundreds of thousands of views still. People, like, you can't take away that level of fame from somebody. So that's why I'm saying even if they destroyed all of his companies, all he's got to do is strap on a loincloth and go in the woods with a cell phone, and people are going to want to watch it.
I would subscribe to that, by the way. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, honestly,
you
hear me, Alex?
yeah.
Let's go.
Alex Jones, Jungle Man, and he's
join
like,
you, baby.
"I'm surviving today, people. This is how you live with the government's on your back." I mean, actually, it would be a really great show.
Incredible. Alex, let's do a documentary. That would be incredible.
Alex Jones.
Or a short film or something.
I don't know,
Survival
though, man. You know, now with the Twitter stuff is interesting because it looks like Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter. It's just powerful interests trying to block people who are challenging the system or these conversations. It just looks like there's evil power at play trying to control, manipulate.
People have been talking about parallel systems for a long time, parallel economies and all of this. And this move with Elon Musk, and there's been some speculation that maybe Peter Thiel will get involved and some other of Elon's friends, billionaire-like sort of investors, would get involved. To me, it's the first step in an actual, like a sort of a parallel cathedral element, or a competing cathedral element, to attack the actual system that it sort of is feels oppressive as the everyman. So I'm kind of like for it. I know some people have been like, well, you're just cheering on, your own right-wing Caesar type character or whatever. Not, I'm like, first of all, I don't think the guy's right-wing at all. But second of all, yeah, for sure. I totally am. Like I'll take anybody who wants to win at this point.
I get kind of like, I see the pushback he's getting. Okay, so there's a couple ways to go at it. You can try and reverse engineer the software, get a bunch of developers together that want to work on like a free software system and try and rebuild what's already been built, which takes forever and so many hours of labor for development labor. Or you can come from the top, buy the organization, and then free the software code that way. But we see with Elon, it's like the Saudi prince is tweeting out he doesn't want to let go of his power. These people, BlackRock, I think, or is it Vanguard? I think Vanguard's in kind of hard.
It's both of them.
They don't want to give up. So it's challenging to take it from the top when you're using their money, the fiat, because they control the fiat. And I say they, it's so vague, but it's the Federal Reserve and these giant megacorps that get first dibs on all the money when they loan it out.
You wanna make a guess, Ian, as to who is the largest institutional investor in Tesla?
Oh, I saw you tweeted that earlier, so I can't. But what about you, Brett?
I think we talked about it earlier as well.
Oh.
Sorry.
What do you guys think? Put in the super chats. You'll find out later.
I just said it's Vanguard.
Vanguard.
Yeah.
Vanguard, then Capital something, then I think BlackRock, and then I think it's State Street Global Advisors.
I swear, this is the problem with going public, man. You can't stop it. Once you get in that pool, the big fish come, and that's that. That's.
I really do love how BlackRock is just a really, really evil corporation sounding name. It's my favorite part about it. It's like what was the other one we were talking about earlier? Blackwater.
Blackstone.
No, from the private mercenary group from those.
Blackwater. Yeah,
they changed their name.
But I love it's just so evil supervillain sounding. It's great.
That's perfect.
Let's talk about DeSantis and see where we're headed in this country.
Oh, snap.
DeSantis defends math textbook rejection as Dems seek proof of critical race theory lessons. Florida Education Department officials have not yet provided examples from the textbooks deemed impermissible, but on Monday released the list of books that failed to make the cut. So apparently, DeSantis defended it. We want kids to learn to think so they get the right answer, DeSantis told reporters. The Florida Department of Education on Friday rejected some 54 math books from state classrooms, a move that drew national attention when DeSantis claimed the proposals from publishing companies contain lessons on indoctrinating concepts like race essentialism. The move was just the latest example of Republicans, including DeSantis, scrutinizing what students are learning, blah, blah. Okay, here's the question. If the math books don't have critical race theory in them, why are they bent out of shape? They're getting removed. If it's just a math book where it's like 2 + 2 is 4, then why would they be mad about that? They'd be like, oh, I guess, do we still have a math book that says 2 + 2 = 4? Then why do we care if you removed that one?
This is really interesting because it is possible that they're not actually teaching critical race theory. Hold on, let me turn myself up. And what they're doing is teaching a form of praxis, which is where critical theory isn't everything. It doesn't have to be explicit. It underlies everything. I've seen some of these math problems. I think it was Matt Walsh earlier today who was reading some of these questions about Maya Angelou and all the stuff that went on in her life, all this racism she stood up to. It's a math problem. You're supposed to be solving X and Y and A and B and all this stuff. But they're rolling into it all these ideas so that they can say, we're not teaching critical race theory. This is praxis. We've talked about this before. This is critical race applied principles.
Right. So an example would be those old math problems where it's like a train leaves Detroit traveling 500 miles an hour, and a train leaves Pittsburgh traveling at 50 miles an hour, and blah, blah, blah. And then, that's a math problem. What they're doing in these is they're like, Johnny is a young white man who's 15 years old, and he gets stopped by the police 3 times in 1 month. But Jerome is a young black man who gets stopped by the police 2,000 times in 1 month. What percentage of stops were, and then you're like, okay, we get it. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I honestly think if anything, it doesn't go far enough. As far as DeSantis's move here, I had to go pick up one of my kids I have one kid in public school and the rest of mine are homeschooled, but I had to go pick her up, and there was a class. The kids must have been maybe 7 years old. And all across the wall is the rainbow flags and trans flag. Now nothing said anything about, but the coloring is all the right coloring, and there's like the little sneaky words, like sharing is caring, like Care Bears type stuff. And this is in a tiny town in Idaho, in the mountains of Idaho. I mean tiny. So it's everywhere, and it's like being pumped into these kids' brains. I actually think like that's why colors are so important. Kids like latch on to that stuff, and it's very visually appealing for them. So when it's broadcast in their faces all the time, you don't have to have an explicit message in there. The message is like in the image.
I still remember an image like in 4th grade on my wall of a horn, like a trumpet playing music, and it showed the sound waves coming out like this, like round. Sorry if you're listening, you're not able to see. But then the teacher came in one day and was like, actually, the sound waves are actually like this, and they changed the image to a sine wave. And that sticks with me to today. That was like 35 years ago or something crazy. Yeah. Imagery is one of the most powerful ways to teach a child anything. Sound, imagery, smell, those kind of things.
Yeah, sensory stuff.
There are a bunch of these videos that are coming out, and it's starting to expose what these teachers are doing. One of them is the like a gender flow chart almost.
Yeah.
And it's from Libsyn TikTok. I saw this where the teacher's like, you start with your sexuality, and then you can go as far as you want towards male or female, and then you come down to your identity, and it can be different. And it's like, it's not. The thing is, if you tell a kid trans people exist, gay people exist, it's like, okay, I get it. You're telling them they exist. If you give them a card and tell them to draw on a scale where they are, now you're actually not just telling them exist. Now you're doing some kind of litmus test for them and their identity. And what happens then if these kids feel like they're not going to fit in if they go with the bland gray flag? The cis flag they've been showing kids is just black and white. So why would a kid pick that one? Mm-hmm. Why would the kid want to be the boring? No, you can be fun and exciting. Here, do these things. And so these kids don't understand oppression. They don't understand civil rights. These are young kids between 5 years old and 9 years old. They're being told just to draw how they feel, and they're like, whatever.
Don't you think they're going after them because at that age they don't understand sexuality at all? They don't have, they're prepubescent and all of this. So if you go after them then and you like start talking to them about sexual orientation, of course, like Johnny and Jack are going to say that they like each other more because girls are stupid and icky or whatever. So then when they do start to develop actual hormones and feelings, you're just like adding layers of confusion because now they're getting all the testosterone's flowing. They're like, well, I thought I liked Jack. It turns out maybe Jill's all right.
I've heard some horror stories from these are coming out of conservative states where like someone's kid said that they thought they were pan, and their parent was like, why do you think you're pan? And they're like, because I like everybody. And they're like, you like everybody? That means you want to kiss them. And their daughter was like, no.
She's friendly.
Yeah, I just mean like I want to be friends with them. And they're like, that's not what that means.
Yeah.
They're lying to those kids. I'm not saying it's every classroom, but certainly that is happening because these kids don't know what that means.
And there's no way it gets to that level of teaching that they don't know that they're confusing them, and that's the worst part about it, is that it's being obfuscated intentionally, partially because they know the kids aren't old enough to really process what that means, and partially just everything that you don't say is every bit as important as what you choose to say, and what you leave out says almost more about it than what you put in, and that's terrifying to me.
Yeah, well, I think I think reality is, these teachers are indoctrinating kids. And then the media is doing everything in its power to push back. So Ibram X. Kendi recently came out and said that, oh, no, they're grooming kids to be white supremacists. And it's like, wow, it's working. If he's got to come out and try and do that, the messaging has worked. You've got Kendi trying to retake the word groomer because they're grooming kids. It ain't going to work, buddy.
Nope. Did you cover the first grade teacher who told the first grade class that when babies are born that the doctor just guesses whether it's a boy or a girl?
Oh yeah, I think we talked about
Did
that.
you talk
Right?
about that?
I don't remember that.
They just guess.
They just told because the doctor just guesses. That's what happens.
There's another video from Libs of TikTok where the doctor's basically saying that, where it's like it's typically based on their genetics and their genitals, but usually it's just their genitals, and sometimes they're wrong. It's like, well. Sometimes, as in 0.07%
yeah.
of the time.
Yeah.
But
this is why ethics is so important. Science can only get you so far. You can only look at pieces and parts and decide your final answer. But I mean, and that's I think maybe the conversation about ethics and emotions has gone kind of too far in one direction. Where it's like if you feel like you're a different sex, then that's reality. Because we have not been having much talk about emotions, so this is like the hammer's coming swinging back. I feel like society's really detached from its emotional self. How often do you see people cry? How often do you see people publicly acknowledging their suffering?
Well, I mean, kids that used to have, even though they weren't living on a farm or whatever, they used to know people that were farmers. They had a grandfather that was a farmer, or an uncle or whatever, and so they were involved with animal husbandry and that stuff at a younger age. And you don't have to explain, like ranch kids don't get birds and the bees talks because they've been breeding animals, they've been around animals who are being bred since they were very, very young. So there's an implicit understanding there. Like dad doesn't have to sit down and say, when a mama bee loves a daddy bee, it's like they've been seeing stud horses and mares out in the pasture.
chickens.
Chickens.
Yeah, like we got Chicken City, and I was thinking about this too. A lot of people talk about how their kids will watch Chicken City. Their dogs and their cats obviously will watch it too. But Chicken City's become this massive success. Thank you, everybody. But no, in all seriousness, you'll get kids watching with their parents, and they'll be like, "I want to feed the chickens," and so they'll put the $5 in. The food comes down, and then you'll see the rooster mount the hen and do his rooster business.
Okay, you have to explain that.
Well, I mean, it's this Chicken City is overtly over the top family friendly. Chickens do these things. Like if you want to teach your kids about farms and petting zoos, you're going to watch that stuff happen. Sure. Now, maybe if your kid's never been exposed to that, you're going to have that conversation. But to your point, that I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, kid who grows up on a goat farm is never going to have that question because they're like a little kid watching the goats do their thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just totally true. And the chicken thing might be a little bit hard because then it's like, wait, so we're eating chicken babies? That's what we're eating?
A lot of questions.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, yep. Every day those eggs come out. It's not necessarily a baby.
Yeah, right.
But you don't eat the chicks. You got to wait for them to grow. That's where you get the meat.
Do you guys have a farm?
Yeah.
Did you explain to your kids about like we're raising the animals, we're going to eat the animals or anything like that?
Oh, I mean, no, I don't know. It just kind of happens. In fact, my little sister, when she was probably 10 years old or so. Maybe she was younger than that, 7 or 8 years old. Anyway, she come home from school and got off the school bus, and I was out feeding her something. And I came around, and I just come in the back door, and I hear her yell, "Hey, Mom, I'm hungry. I want to eat Bob." It was this steer that she'd named Bob, and she loved the steer or whatever. But she's like, "Whatever's food." It's like, he's cute and everything, but we're gonna eat him. So it's another one of those things, just kind of implicit. I don't think you
imagine
have to,
being Bob.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know that name.
Do they argue against naming them for that reason?
No, I mean, my stepfather used to hate it, but for me personally, it doesn't bother me at all. Like yesterday, I was at my in-laws, getting ready to come, Easter, and then getting ready to come out here, and as soon as I left, we had one of our heifers calved, and my wife comes home. She's like, oh, look at it, so cute. I mean, thank goodness I didn't have to pull it or anything. But, she's talking about how cute these little Angus calves are or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. And then, the kids are hearing her talk like that, but they never have a problem, eating. Like, they know it's a cow.
I guess when you're raised from the beginning with that, you would just know from the tiniest age.
Yeah, I think you're just closer to it or something.
This is interesting because we've asked many times, like, who's going to survive better in the apocalypse, or who is more likely to survive, a conservative, rural, or urban liberal. And it's like no one thinks the urban liberals are going to make it, but this is a really good point we've not brought up. It's that people who grow up in rural areas are more likely to have been exposed at a young age to slaughtering a pig or a chicken to eat. Like, I want to eat Bob. People in the city are going to be like, I have to do what with the knife? And then what do I do with those things?
Yeah.
They're not going to want to do it. They want to walk into a supermarket where there's just pink slime. They can just, cook it and eat it.
We had a farm. My grandpa's cousin had a farm, Northeast Ohio. We would go out there, Uncle Alvin, and cousin Alvin, and then you see the thing hanging upside down, like the cattle thing, just all the blood, all the skin ripped off, and it's like wow. And I don't think I ever watched him butcher it up, and I never saw him kill it. I did see my dad kill a groundhog, and that was he family friendly. He wounded the groundhog and it escaped, and I just saw the trail of blood, and it was really disturbing. I thought, why hunt if you're not gonna, like, why would you wound it and
destroy houses?
Yeah, there's always a reason
about it.
But it was pretty tragic to see it get wounded and get away, because I was like, what's gonna happen? And he was like, well, it's gonna die in a hole somewhere.
Get eaten.
Yeah.
Or die in a hole. Yeah, the thing about groundhogs is that they knock trees down. They can destroy houses. They can destroy foundations. So I was reading about it, and apparently there are some places where if you actually catch the groundhog, you have to kill it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because you can be liable for the damages it caused after you've caught it.
I did not know that.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, like imagine you catch it, and you're like, oh, I don't want to hurt the little thing. So you just bring it to the edge of your property and let it go, and it goes to your neighbor's house and knocks a tree down. They're going to be like, you released that thing on me.
Yeah, someone mentioned that about mice. They're like, if you don't do something with them, they will come back and they'll get worse. And I was going to say that I think that maybe one of the best things about living on a ranch is that you can teach your kids about the circle of life. Like, if something does crawl in a hole and die, then other things come along and eat it. It becomes part of the soil. It's all part of, like, growing plants and all this. Really, it's actually really a neat cycle that I think kids would benefit from knowing about. These things are hard because we have led such, like, kind of privileged and cushioned lives. We can go to the store and get these little pink things they're chicken. Where did it come from? We don't know. Milk grows on the shelves. It's absolute insanity. We have no connection to the things we eat. It's a good opportunity to teach kids about that kind of cycle. Really important.
Would you butcher at the farm?
Yeah, I butcher all our stuff. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do my own butchering. Yeah, in fact, this discussion made me think of my friend Shanna. She always says that cows are friends and steers are food, which is true. Like, cows have more babies and you eat the steers or keep your replacement heifers and sell some off. And so anyway, so there is kind of a little bit of bifurcation that's worth talking about. Like, the cows themselves are actually occupy a different place.
It's because you keep them comfortable so they have healthy babies and they produce good milk.
Well, I mean, you want to keep them all comfortable ideally, because you want as much pound on the animal as you can when you go to butcher.
And if they're stressed out, the meat can be bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, stress is more just like they'll have a harder time gaining weight. At least that's been. Yeah. Now, like, if you're hunting, if you wound something, it's going to get a hit of neuroepinephrine, and then your meat is going to be more tense and stiffer or tough.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
So when you're hunting, you want the animal to be like in the head, just down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, killed as quickly as possible. Like, and then there are some arguments people will make that, like an arrow through, and I've seen it a bunch of times, and an arrow through the actual, like, boiler room with the vitals, the animal almost, I mean, they'll run off, but you can tell that they have no idea what happened. They're just like, then they just die.
Oh, wow.
So.
Oh, okay. So then they don't get
there's not a big loud sound associated with it. It's just a sharp pain, and then they're done.
That's because it's an arrow?
Yeah, broadhead, it's just a clean cut, and the bow doesn't make a lot of noise. And so I've heard this argument. I don't know how much like bro science is going on there, but I mean, I think it's a viable argument, I think.
So like when they realize they're in danger, they tense up, and then the muscle becomes stiff and hard, and then you try to eat it. It's like you got to.
Yeah, I think the big hit of adrenaline.
Yeah.
Going through and stiffens them up. Yeah. And then, of course, like if you hit something in the guts or whatever, then that's a whole nother.
You kind of see that with factory farming when they lead the cattle into the bolt thing where they're going to put the bolt in their head. And then you watch the one behind it hear the one in front of it die, and they freak out.
Sure.
So that's got to be affecting the final meat, the meat. I feel like I'm almost disassociated. I don't know. I'm a weird, empathetic creature sometimes.
Happy cows, man.
Yeah, happy cows, happy
But
life.
cows aren't raised for beef. It's just they're dairy, and then what the steers are the beef cattle or whatever?
Yeah. So cows are cows are the females, right? And they are going to reproduce, so you turn your bulls in, depending on your setup, you turn your bulls in for, some people leave them in all the time, but, you turn your bulls in for X amount of months, and then, you pull your bulls out, and then, like right now at home, most of us are calving or almost done calving, which is just having the babies, and then you'll wean cows and calves, later on, and that's when they'll go to auction. So
how long does it take for a calf to grow up to become either food or?
It depends on your setup, whether you're running a cow-calf operation or you're running a feed operation or just like buying ballers or steers. And it depends on what you're doing. But like, let's just say, just for roundabout, let's just say 8 months-ish. Then you go to auction or keep your replacement heifers.
So if I wanted milk, right, and I bought day one, just born calf, how long until it can, work with the bull to start producing milk and getting the baby and everything?
I see. Usually breed heifers around 2 years old.
2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are they able to inbreed like chickens?
Well, you castrate all the bulls, right? So you just have. Oh, I see what you're saying, Dad.
Yes,
daughter.
exactly.
Yeah. You try to avoid that where you can, but sure.
But
and some people will line breed.
You castrate the bulls?
Well, the bull calves. So when
you don't want them, because you only want one to be breeding with them, or what?
Yeah, well, yeah, you don't want a 9-month-old or so bull calf out there breeding your heifers or whatever.
Right.
Plus, just makes better meat.
So there's So there's specific bulls will be left not castrated, but like
right,
isolated,
yeah. You'll pull those out and put them in their own pen, and then.
And those are the studs.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's a great name.
Well, that was interesting cow talk. Let's go back to schools.
More
though.
cow talk. That was great.
We got this story from Timcast.com. Former assistant principal at Virginia Elementary School files lawsuit, says critical race theory teachings created really hostile work environment. Really? Emily Mayes, who worked at Agnor Hurt Elementary School in Charlottesville, says she was subjected to extreme harassment for weeks over her reservations about CRT. The situation escalated for Mayes. She claims when she accidentally used the word colored instead of people of color during a teaching workshop. Despite apologizing continuously, including immediately after the word was uttered, she says that for months she was harassed and berated by other staff, and that the district failed to intervene. One black employee who refused to accept the apology began referring to her as that white racist bee. Wow. I just got to say, this is a strategy to use. If you work somewhere with any kind of critical race theory stuff, sue them. That's what you got to do. Because if they're telling you things based on race, like white people, white privilege or whatever, they're in violation of the EEOC and the Civil Rights Act. So you got to sue them. This is the tactic. You got to use it. Check out this other story. We got this one from Fox News. Professor wins lawsuit against university over pronouns. Students' demand went against my Christian beliefs. The Ohio professor won $400,000 after suing the university over being forced to use students' preferred pronouns. There it is, my friends. You got to stand up for yourself.
It's the difference between the United States and Canada right there.
How does my favorite part about the pronouns thing is it should very rarely be coming up in-person conversation anyways, because most of the time you're not using their pronouns when you're actually talking to them in the room anyways. Right? You're going to call them by their name or you're going to refer to them directly. It's more to control your speech when they're not in the room.
Isn't that weird?
Like we did a story on Pop Culture Crisis where we were talking about Demi Lovato, and Demi Lovato has like they them pronouns, and I couldn't do it. I kept screwing it up, and because like you said earlier, I want to be respectful. I try to, like, some people don't like that. Like, I'm like, look, that's what they want. I understand, but I eventually like had to give up on the point and come back to it like the next day because I couldn't get it right. I kept screwing it up. So she was controlling. I just did it right there. they were controlling my ability to speak on them without even being in the room, just by virtue of creating pronouns that are different from the normal, the normal set.
So everybody called out Demi Lovato because Demi Lovato says they are daddy's girl in caption of sizzling Instagram portraits after coming out as non-binary and using they, them pronouns. You don't get to choose your pronouns. I'm sorry. Nope. Look, I try to be nice to everybody. I want to be civil, respectful. But you can't tell me what words to use. If I want to call Brett Brat, he can be like, that's not my name. And I'll be like, too bad. Like, I'm going to say whatever I want now.
Is that short for bratwurst?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just saying it slightly differently.
Delicious.
Instead of Ian, I'm going to call him Ian.
Hey, you're not the first.
What's he going to do about it?
Just laugh.
So if I say, like Luke kept calling Lydia Linda
Yeah.
when he was on the show.
Rude, first of all.
See, well, she's offended.
I am very offended.
Does that mean I have to take over calling you Lydia?
No,
Linda
Brett.
now.
Linda. No, but like, what's Lydia gonna say other than "Don't call me Linda"? And it's like, okay, Linda. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
it's like
that's true.
you can tell him.
To be fair, I think that pronouns are very much a power play because Brett's right. There is no period of time at which you would say like he when Braxton's sitting right there in front of you or when Tim's sitting right in front of you. It's when they're not even there.
It's like, could you imagine having a conversation like that where
Referring to someone in
Brett,
third person.
Brett makes a reference to a Demi Lovato story, and then I just look to Braxton and I'm like, did you hear what he was just saying?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right.
He's just out of the conversation.
I think if it's pretty, rude for sure. If someone called me by the wrong name to make fun of me, I'd be like, all right, bro, take it easy. And then if they kept doing it, I'd be like, I'm not going to interact with you anymore. Or whatever I had to do. But I understand why, but then if I change my pronoun to a new kind of language or new kind of thought thing, that's a hard one to get. I don't know. Maybe it's the same kind of thing that emotionally for the people that are experiencing this. So
I don't know, man.
Well, like, remember when it was on here or was it on Rogan when they had Labonte on and he was talking about, it's like, yeah, like, I'll call you by your pronouns, but I might just not call you very often to hang out because you're really difficult to be around.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean any disrespect, but like, if I have to worry about any point in the conversation, something like this comes up, I'm just going to check out, dude. I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, good way to put it.
How mad are you at your dad? Like that's like how much do you need attention?
Yeah,
I don't think it's that. Demi Lovato said she's daddy's girl.
Yeah.
She. You know why I'm saying she?
Why?
Because she said she's daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And now look, if she comes out and says that she's non-binary, I'm like, okay, whatever. If she comes out and says she's daddy's girl, I'm like, oh, she's a girl again.
She's a girl,
So now
yeah.
she's a she, right? You can't so she changed it back.
So pronoun fluid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, she can just be pronoun fluid.
You know what I think it is? The reason why they're going after kids is because little kids are like trying to find their identity, right? But the identity is usually something like, do I want to be a fireman or do I want to be a carpenter? Do I want to be a doctor or a nurse or something? Now they're going to kids and be like, I remember when I was little and they're like, what's your favorite color? And I was always like, I don't know. Like, how do you know what your favorite color is? What does that even mean? And then I would just tell people green because the calendar for March, my birthday was always green. It's like green, I guess, because like that's the only thing I can kind of think of. I don't know. I kind of like blue or whatever. So you just pick it. Now you're a little kid, and they're like, "Which pronouns are you?" And they're like, "Floorbo." I don't know. Whatever.
Is it New York that recognizes 33 separate genders?
31.
31 separate genders. It's insane.
But they legally recognize any and all genders, which means you can make one up on the spot.
So what is the point of a 31 if they legally recognize all?
Of the 31, they even are redundant. Like female to male is considered a gender in New York, but FTM is also considered a gender, even though it means the same thing.
This stuff is so difficult to talk about because I am such a generally respectful and do not want to offend or hurt anyone's feelings. And I know a lot of people, like, working here, you kind of like, a lot of people see that as like a flaw, right? That you're too weak to stand up for something. But it's like, I don't want to offend or upset anybody. But some of this stuff is so impossible to process in the moment that if I can't even have a reasonable conversation with you, I don't know how to do this without being offensive, and I don't want that. So it's like I'm being forced to be offensive, but only to them. Like, I'm trying not to be, but they're making it about that, and that's very, very difficult for me to process as somebody who just doesn't want to be on the wrong side of people just for general reasons.
Yeah, talking about someone, then you're taking some risk. When you're talking to someone, pronouns are out of the question. You don't even use pronouns. You're having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And anyone can get down with that. Doesn't matter how they identify. When you start talking about people, then they're like, whoa, if you're going to bring me into this, bring me into it the way I want to be brought into it. And that's like, not in the United States. I'm bringing you in because you're part of this. And I think we can have that discussion.
It's purposefully destabilizing.
Yeah.
It's impossible for a regular person to know what's happening or who you're talking about. So the example I gave, like on Twitter, was I can't remember exactly how I wrote it, but I said Pat and Sam go to see a movie. They got angry because they wanted to see a horror film, but they ended up seeing a comedy instead. And what they really wanted was, and then it's just like, what does the they refer to? Like, which person did what? If you said like Mike and Jane went to a movie, she got angry because she wanted to see a comedy film, but he wanted to see horror, and they ended up seeing horror. Now you understand. The girlfriend is mad. She wants to see comedy. The boyfriend wanted to see horror. They were both mad because they didn't end up seeing anything. But if you said Sam and Pat went to the movies, they were mad because they wanted to see a comedy, but they saw horror. It's like, are you like they were both mad? Which person is referred to in the they? Now, to be fair, in the context of, Sarah and Jane go to the movie and she was mad, you're also like, I don't know which person you're referring to, because if it's two different genders, there you go. In which case, you don't need the pronouns at all. Sarah and Jane go to the movie. Sarah got mad because she wanted to see a movie, a comedy, but Jane wanted to see horror, and they ended up saying, so you just use the name. In which case, this whole discussion is like, almost makes no sense.
I think you're right, though, that it's about being purposely destabilizing. As much as it pains me to give him credit, Jesse Kelly calls these guys communists all the time, and I think he's right, at least in orientation, and also because it makes them mad to be called communists, so I think it's good to use. But the whole, basically, in a sense, the Lenin model is destabilize, create confusion and chaos, and then come in and be the person that restores order in the way that you want it. And that seems to be the approach that they
How do
take.
they restore order? Who are they looking for?
Shooting people in the streets, but it was one way.
But I'm saying, who are they looking for that's going to make sense of this?
Well, at this stage, I don't think it matters because it's chaos stage.
Because he's like a lot of these people who shilled for Biden, who just like he doesn't understand the stuff. He doesn't like. I would argue that he doesn't really understand any of the stuff that's going on with that part of the movement. But it's like you said earlier, you think it's about destabilizing, and we talked about religion, and you said I think like why does it feel like people are coming more around to religion again? It's because they're looking for something solid under their feet. And I'm not religious, but I'm one of those people that's like everything feels so up in the air now that you're just looking for something, anything to hold on to that feels like some semblance of the real world and not this postmodern hell that feels like we're in right now.
I mentioned that earlier, that in a time when you start to lose faith in reality, you start to look for faith in other places. And I see people reverting to religion of the past or to non-binary degenderism or whatever the heck. I looked up, there's a meme going around that says they translated non-binary into Spanish, and there's two ways to translate it. One is the feminine version and one is the masculine version. No binaria and no binario.
Perfect.
Wow. Well, so
you got to cancel Spanish.
Let's talk about the return of religion. I mean, Brett just brought up that things are starting to become more religious. I remember reading about Dave Rubin. Is he now a Christian, or did he,
I believe so, yeah.
Something like that happened. And I find that interesting because a lot of people ragged on him, saying like all of a sudden this guy who they say drifted to the right is now, all of a sudden he's a conservative Christian or whatever. And the funny thing is, the opposite kind of happens to me, because I've like long talked about how I've believed in God since I was like 18. Like grew up Catholic, then kind of drifted away, but then I was a teenager, so I had this like realization, and now I believe in God, but I don't consider myself like religiously theistic or anything like that. I don't follow scripture or anything like that. I just think there's a God. And instead I get conservatives calling me an atheist. I'm like, why? What is that all about? I don't know. Weird. But I do think it's interesting. So I just wanted to dig in on why you guys think religion is making a comeback.
Fundamentally, everyone is disoriented or misoriented and is rudderless and unmoored, and we're all feeling it. It's the chaos it's palpable, and we feel it in our own lives every day. And so everyone's looking for a rudder. The rest, like, we're just adrift in the ocean right now, and we're looking for something to stick in the waves and try to get back to shore. Religion has worked for a long time. Christianity's 2,000 years old. Judaism's 5,000 years old or something. That's pretty firm, solid footing. So I think people are looking that way because it's worked. I mean, look at like the Peterson phenomena. Like he would he would talk, I've heard him.
Peterson?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson. Thank you. I've heard him like be jokingly referred to as like the guy who speaks to kids who didn't have dads. I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but I think really like he was speaking to a generation that was sort of broken up by new atheism. Like these younger Christian kids or Jewish kids or whatever that fell in love with Dawkins and Hitchens and Harris and these kind of guys because they were charismatic, and really they're attacking the argument level of like a teenager or whatever. But they, if you don't know, if you're not, well steeped or versed in your faith, then it's kind of easy to get, swayed by someone who's as charismatic as Hitchens. So that went on for, a decade or whatever. And then these people that had went through that were looking at the society around them and the chaos and disaster that it had become. And Peterson steps up and in many ways is kind of like the anti-new atheist. He's like making similar arguments, but on the opposite end. And then those same kids are like, I remember Peterson talking about a bunch of atheists showing up at his things and asking him about God. And so I just think that we're looking for, collectively, we're looking for some solid footing, and religion has persisted. So
scientific method kind of turns me off. I know there's real value to the scientific method. It's fantastic for building machines and stuff, but placebo effect is real. No one knows why. They just know it's somewhat effective in studies and trials. That's not, scientific method can't explain it. So that's not a perfect system. And so I look elsewhere. What else is there? Quantum physics is fascinating. Religions are fascinating. God is fascinating. But to jump on one seems like a preemptive mistake. So at least that's where I'm at right now.
I somewhat agree. I do think the scientific method can eventually understand why the placebo effect happens. I think we just haven't yet. Because if you're going to keep doing testing, you figure out what's going on in the brain or in the body. But I somewhat agree, picking one religion. That's why I consider myself non-theistic in a sense. I don't follow any scripture or whatever, but I do believe, God exists. And it's because I've met too many people who are like, I know for sure, and here's why, let me explain it to you. And I'm like, man, you really are convinced, you know a whole lot. You've asked a lot of deep philosophical questions. And here's another guy who says you're wrong, who's also very learned, so I'm like, I don't know. I think the one thing I can agree on is that there's something bigger and greater than all of us, but I don't know if maybe the reality is everybody's looking through a small lens at the bigger picture at the same thing. And, they're looking through it and they see, imagine there's this big mansion. I always use an example as a ballroom inside with tons of people and they're all dancing. And you look through the keyhole and they're like, what do you see? What's inside? And you're like, there's a big woman with a big dress. Then 10 feet down is a guy looking through the same keyhole, and he sees a guy wearing a tuxedo. No, it's not. It's a guy wearing a tuxedo. And they both started arguing, like, oh, no, I'm seeing this. He's like, he's crazy. Look. And everyone's like, I can see the lady. He's making it up.
Depending on where you're coming from, you see something different.
But the reality is the bigger picture on the inside is everybody's getting little pieces of it,
You think there's an objective reality?
Yeah, I do.
How would you define it?
Yeah, well,
okay.
I mean, seriously though,
I'm so glad he asked you that question and not me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Descartes makes me so angry. Yeah, I mean, I see your point. I think that you have to live in the real world at some point, and for me, it's like that's the table. And let's say I went outside and closed my eyes. And I didn't even know. I had no idea you were there. It was in the dark. Okay, you knew I was there, but I had no idea that you were there. And you threw a snowball and hit me in the side of the face. There is no chance that I could deny the existence of that snowball that I did not know existed before it struck my face. So, obviously, we react with the material world, And I do think it's provable. It's just that you have to set up such bizarre experiments to get there that you get in circles.
This is why people often argue about what objective and subjective is. And it's like, you've got the brain in the vat thought experiment. Maybe your brain's in a tube and they're poking it with electrodes. Maybe we're all in the Matrix. Maybe you at home are the only real person and everyone else is just some kind of video game NPC. Who knows? How do you define objective reality? It's the external things that have a tendency towards being true is the easiest way I can think of it. Like if I throw a rock at a standard house window, the window will break. Or maybe you'll miss, but we can basically predict what's going to happen.
Physics is the most objective reality I can figure at this point.
Sort of. So the challenge is some windows are bulletproof. And so you can be like, I can prove to you objective reality, the window will break, and you throw it, and then it bounces off the window, and you're like, okay, I was wrong about that. Well, it doesn't disprove objective reality. It just means there's such nuance and subtleties to most things that defining reality and like defining objective reality is difficult because everyone has a subjective perspective. I suppose you just look for the things that everyone agrees upon as being true, which is why we had the argument before about universal objective morality, to which I believe there is one. And it's because when we were talking to Jeremy Boring and Michael Knowles, and they were saying, essentially, what's the point of a planet without humans? It's because we are human. We live within a human experience, and the human experience is our existence. Without humans, there's just, there's life, but it's not perceived the way we perceive it. There's no value to it the way we perceive value. It's literally just a rock and water or something. So from the human experience, I look to what is true in every culture to every person. Stepping on a rock hurts, right? So we can see some things are objective, but it's a gradient. You get to a certain point where you're getting into physics even, and you might say, I believe that there are 13 dimensions. Here's the math to prove it. And someone else will be like, you're crazy. There's 14, and here's the math to prove it. And then you're getting into weird and wacky world stuff.
Because they're both right. If there's 14, that means there's also 13. There's also 12.
Well, but you get my point. Like, they'll disagree on the math and ultimately the fundamental nature of the universe. So how could it be objective reality if the human experience denies what is true?
I'll tell you objective reality. I got to go to the bathroom. I will see you guys in 2 minutes, and I love you.
All right. My point is not that because a bunch of people believe something is true makes it true. It's just that if we can all prove something to a certain degree and then we can replicate it, we've found our objective, reality to a certain degree. It's never completely possible to know everything.
Why is the objective reality discussion so fascinating? Like I'm literally asking, like, why do you think it is that we always come back to that when we have these discussions? Why is it that this focus on like I was talking to someone earlier about we always talk about common sense not being that common anymore. It seems like people are taking this very large-scale view when we've got plenty of problems in the very, very real world that we're dealing with now. So we have these discussions, and I always find that it ends up distracting from actually solving. Not to say that's not important or that there's not value in the discussion. There is, but I'm saying that it usually comes up when we're discussing real-world issues and these other things. So I'm always fascinated how we go back to these kind of more larger-scale discussions rather than staying on the topics we were actually discussing beforehand.
Well, I mean, we're talking about people becoming religious.
And that was it. Okay, so like, so for me, like when I was thinking about religion, like as somebody who's not denominational or anything like that, but I keep coming back to it recently because of an absence of redemption in the world we live in right now. There's absolutely, like, whether we're talking about people who are like strong proponents of cancel culture, or if you want to talk about ideological leftists that are pushing these narratives right now, they don't really have much of a belief in redemption at all. And that's something we went and saw Father Stew, which is like we reviewed it for the channel, and I was like, this might have been like a 6 or 7 maybe, but I gave it like a 9 just because seeing a story that was so heavily focused on the idea of redemption, even if you exclude all of the religious elements, just that type of story is so missing and so lacking in society today when you're not allowed to redeem yourself. Once you're out, once you're on the outs with the group, you're out forever and you're never allowed back. That's why they say you can never apologize, because if you apologize, you're admitting fault and then you're forever that person. And that sickens me in a lot of ways. I don't like the idea that that what you are at one time is who you are forever. And right. I take issue with that. And religion takes pains to make that a big part of its value system, and that means a lot to me, even if I can't at this time say that I'm denominational.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to the communism thing. It's not that they want you out as an outcast or whatever forever. They just want you broken.
Submit to the group.
Yeah. They just want you broken so that they can mold you or use you or throw you away or whatever. And that is, to your point, the redemption arc that religion allows for is powerful and fundamental, and in some ways kind of what separates us from the animal kingdom, that we allow for things like that.
Maybe that's what's driving people back to religion, that they've seen cancel culture, they've seen the woke left, and they've said, I want to be a better person, I want to be redeemed, I don't want to be like that. And so there's a moral structure that says you can be redeemed, you can be forgiven, which is the opposite of the modern wokeness. But let's do this. Let's talk about your book. and your story. Do you want to explain what tell us what your book is and what it's about?
Yeah. When I joined the military, and then I got wounded over in Iraq, and it's in 2006. Got busted up pretty good. Broke my left tibia, my left femur in 3 places, and my left hip in 2 places, and my right hip in 1, and my right femur in 2, and my radius and ulnar in my arm, and my right median nerve got transected here. And anyway, just a host of injuries. My left humerus was broken, all by most all by ball bearings, and I do have a bullet hole down here. But so then I came home, and it ties into this redemption arc. I came home, and they had me on. Obviously they were having a hard time. They didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again, and so I went through all of that, the physical recovery stuff, and then I got to a civilian doctor. Got out of the military hospital to a civilian doctor, and he went through the pain medication that I was on, and he was like, "Braxton, I have old women dying of cancer that are on way less than half of the amount of pain medication that you're on." So I was hyper addicted to opioids. Didn't know it at the time, but hyper addicted to opioids. He started scaling me back, and then I went through about 2 years of first stage physical therapy, and then I started trying to get off opiates, so I went through struggles with all of that kind of stuff. And so speaking to redemption arc, I lived like a complete dirtbag for a long time. So I'm very pro redemption myself.
I'm also in recovery, so that's a large part of my story as well. Maybe that I didn't even really connect that when I was thinking about it here, but maybe that's why the idea of redemption hits me so hard. But I understand that struggle for sure.
Yeah, man. So like prodigal sons, right? You went off and lived in the underworld, and now are doing your best to climb your way out, or like as Dostoevsky writes about it, as like the underground. But it's the same. It's the underground man and everything. So it's the same concept.
What's the book called?
The Glass Factory.
So it's about your redemption arc, coming back from addiction and injury?
Honestly, one of my favorite parts about this book has been when I first wrote it, I was looking around, and all the war books that I was seeing were just not reflective of the experience. And it's like, I'm not trying to take a shot at anybody, but they were just not reflective of the experience I was seeing around me. I was seeing my friends, several of them commit suicide, getting divorces, going to jail, losing custody of their kids, having problems. And the 2 choices in literature that they sort of had were either uber hero stories, that are superhero type stories, or this like very whiny, crybaby type thing. And there was no one trying to thread the needle and say, look, a lot of us are screwing up, and you need to quit screwing up. And until you stop screwing up, your life is going to suck, man. Like, you got to get out, and do better. So I tried to kind of thread that needle. And
what was the moment you realized?
Oh man, I don't know. It's funny. I actually wrote about this in the book too. You might like this part of the book you would actually like. I was trying to, you're doing a lot of self-reflection when you're writing something like that, and I was trying to find this moment and pinpoint it when I decided to like be better or whatever. And what I realized is that we all do this when we tell our own stories. Like, we look back in time for this one thing that flipped a switch or whatever, but it's never true. There was always a series of small decisions that led up to or away from making the right one.
What was a couple of the really big decisions you made that led you to the path?
Getting up at 5 a.m. helped for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but just getting myself onto a schedule was a big one. So I couldn't run for 8 years, and then one day I was able to kind of jog a little bit again. And I used to be an athlete, and so I was very excited at the possibility of running again. So I went and ran a mile with my buddy who's runs endurance stuff, and then I decided to transfer that into going and hiking the Mauna Kea in Hawaii. And so I had like a goal to train for, and that was enormous for me, to like have something to orient myself at physically, so that I actually had to like take care of my body, and I'd gotten off of the opiates before, but then I was just still living like an idiot and drinking too much.
I want to ask for both of you guys, actually, being in recovery, did religion or God play a role in getting off drugs?
I mean, for me, for sure, it was, I would say the drug part I was so lost still at the time that I'm not sure how much God really. I mean, so this is where it gets hard. Is like maybe to my own neurotic, selfish, in my own neurotic and selfish mind, God wasn't playing a role. But I think, looking back, I think for sure God was playing a role. And now it helps a lot.
I didn't have any such. I don't know if I would have been able to process that type of a concept at the time. My brain was in such chaos going through that, but for me it was and like I said, I was just discussing with someone about this, how there's no linear, like everyone looks for that moment where they feel like they're getting better, or like this is the big decision. It's in the movies, it's always somebody gets in a car accident and they realize they have to turn their life around, but for most people it's not something that concrete. You just have to make that decision day by day, and then suddenly you find yourself on a path to do so. And for me, it wasn't religion so much as it was getting finding firm footing on something I wanted to do. It was like skating for me. It was I had been sober for a while, and then my mom passed, and then that wasn't an event that led to it, but it changed things as far as my schedule and my ability to open up my life, because at that time I was taking care of my mom. She was in poor health for many years, so the ability to get back out and just physical activity played a huge role in that. And like you start actively getting active again, you feel better about yourself, and that leads, and it all becomes kind of like a snowball rolling downhill. And it's just it wasn't God for me, but it was more the ability to take your life into your own hands and push forward was very monumental when you've been at the mercy of something for so long. The ability to be in control of yourself again is like I said, I've told that story before. Like when I realized that I could go outside without or like I could get up without being sick, I cried for 20 minutes. And that's because you've now got control of yourself again. You're not beholden to something created by a pharmaceutical company. And that's a revelatory experience that goes far. Like, I mean, maybe that is God speaking in a way, but
yes.
It feels to be akin to that.
I'm thinking about the brain and all the neurons, and if that's connected to the magnetosphere, the extremely low frequency band, and if that's God, and are you part of it? Yeah, that's what I normally think about. Yeah, self-control, I imagine if there is a God, that it's tightly interwoven.
I just wonder, because I hear a lot of stories that, a religious experience or something was like pulling people. I tell this story about this guy I knew who's on drugs, and then he had a profound experience where a voice told him to get his life together, and it made him very religious. I
looked for something like that. Like maybe it's just because like I talk about pop culture all day. I watch movies all day. I'm looking for that movie-like experience that's going to bring me out of the situation I'm in. And then one day you just realize that is not the real, at least not for everyone. It won't be the real world. It won't be what everybody experiences. And you have to rely on yourself again. And maybe it would have, maybe selfishly, I would have loved to have had that. But I still have such a hard time asking those questions about faith. Like, it's very hard for me to put my faith all in something. So perhaps he had a different belief system that led him more to find something like, to find his answers in that. And I just hadn't, wherever I was on my journey, just wasn't there yet. So I had to find my way a different way. But it's like, that's that movie type way. You always imagine somebody pulling you back from the brink. And that wasn't my experience, but I almost would have loved to have had that. It feels like that would have been benefit.
I think at the root of every addict fundamentally is ingratitude for being. It's like just being angry at being. So if you try to cultivate gratitude in your life and take yourself and however you want to think about this bone sack that you occupy, start to take that seriously, then a lot of your other problems will sort themselves out.
I talk about gratitude as a superpower, the ability to show gratitude for, at a certain point, I'm in a very cheap apartment. I'm working. I'm barely making enough money to get by, but I'm skating every day and I'm doing what I love. And if I can go out every day, walk to get around, do what I need to do something that I love while having a job, paying my bills. And if I can be extremely grateful for that, that is something that I feel bad for people that can't find the gratitude. Like I almost feel like they're missing out on the ability to feel that emotion.
What's the best way to find gratitude through pain?
For me, I don't know if I find it through pain. I find it through getting through the pain and finding yourself on the other side of it. And that's the ability to handle it without help. Or like without the ability to find yourself through it and still be okay. Not without help, but like the ability to suffer through it, achieve, get out on the other side and find out that you're still okay and you can still go on. There's gratitude in that for me.
One of the best parts about that is that we all embody that lesson and we don't realize it. Like when you go to the gym and lift weights, you have pain and, it's sort of a suffering experience. And you do that because you know that on the other end, you're going to be a stronger person. And we've known that since we were little. We learn this slowly over time. You're literally embodying that story,
Yeah. Well, let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com. Become a member if you want to support our journalists, and you will get access to the upcoming members-only show. We'll be live around 11 p.m. on the website. But let's read some Super Chats. Let's see. Ginger McIsaac says, "Happy Tax Day, everyone. Cough, cough, wheeze." I'm just going to say it. Super Chats were low for this show, but I get it. No, and so, like we've got the console here at the YouTube for the YouTube studio, and I'm looking at the revenue, and it's not bad. It's like we do well, but I'm just like, everybody's hurting.
Pay your taxes.
Everybody just cashed that big check, and they're like, oh,
Lex
man.
Friedman made an interesting tweet. He was like, I'm down, I'm paying my taxes, I'm crying, but I wish I knew where this money was going. I don't like sending it to this amorphous blob of a thing that is bureaucratic. And he makes a fantastic point. I think we should have some sort of transparent mechanism to decide where at least some of our tax money goes. Even if they say, all this is going to black budget. At least I know.
Well, I mean, they can be like, you submit an inquiry. I'd like to know where my, X amount of dollars in taxes went. And then, like, they just send you back a form that says we blew up kids.
That's what it feels like.
Well,
it's a bit dark because the military budget is not as high as people think it is. Mm-hmm. Everyone, I think it's like probably 20% of the dollar that you spend in taxes. Maybe maybe I'm wrong about that. Because I think people think it's really high. It's not as high as they think. And a lot of it does go to I think veterans benefits. I think that's true. Like a large portion might go to
it's like 120 billion of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the majority of the budget is social programs. I'm nearly positive.
Do you guys know how much what the tax revenue is for the year, or like what it was last year?
Google it.
Yeah,
and then we'll read some super chats while you Google it. Thank you.
I want to know who's gonna. Sorry, I just want to know who's gonna click the gender training, or diversity training when they're filling out their tax form. If we go under Ian's system, how many people are really gonna click? Yeah, let's fund more of this.
Exactly.
It would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be gone. People are gonna be like, I don't know. It would be like healthcare, and everyone would click yes. Yeah. And then it would be like war, no. And then it would be like gender studies, no.
It looks like in
Roads,
2021, they expected in October, estimates were 3.8 trillion. You said 180 billion go to.
Okay, so that's not that much.
3.8
trillion. Can you look at the breakdown for where it goes?
Yeah. I think it's 120 billion to the VA, but I could be getting that number wrong.
Let's read some more. We got Deli who says, Tim, Felix Rex, a.k.a. Black Pigeon Speaks, is currently in the U.S. I beg you not to let the opportunity pass without getting him on Timcast IRL. Would be a great conversation, especially around geopolitics.
I don't think we can because I don't believe that he shows his face much on camera. I haven't caught up with him lately. I do think he did a face reveal, but I don't think he would be comfortable with coming on and giving an interview. But
we got a chicken mask downstairs. You could wear like one of the masks.
We can get a horse head.
Yeah,
and we could put a mic into the. All right. User not available says, Tim, you're looking good. Thank you. I like the haircut. Also, Ian looks like the teacher from Beavis and Butthead in a good way. Put a pic of him next to Ian.
Thank you.
Should we get the teacher and we'll put it on the.
Definitely.
Looks like the teacher.
Yeah.
All right. I mean. And kind of acts like him, too.
Yeah, that guy's so funny.
What was his name?
I don't know. Let's find out.
All right. Joe Harshbarger says, Peter Ducey, why do you still recommend masks? Saki, for God's sake, Peter, I'm a press secretary, not a doctor. Aha. Star Trek. All right.
I got the name. It's David Van Driesen.
Van Driesen.
A hippie teacher at Highland High School.
Yeah.
Did you see the article I put in? I sent the other day about the person who said they'd only come back for DS9 if it was about social justice.
Oh, jeez. Who said that?
One of the actresses from the show.
I saw a really interesting post earlier that said it was breaking down how people's lives were, like, in the United States, completely revolving around Christianity, whether they realize it or not, even atheists. And one of the funny points was that, Your favorite exclamation is a call to your Lord and Savior. People literally will yell Jesus when they're shocked by something. Do you not realize that? I mean, people really don't think about it. We see these videos of people yelling Allahu Akbar when like a bomb goes off, and people are like, "What is it? What is it?" They're saying, "Oh my God." That's literally like probably the best translation. It's like, it means God is great. Like, yeah, but probably the emotion is, "Oh my God." And so I just said "Jeez," which is just derivative of Jesus.
Yep.
Even atheists in this country will be like, you'll yell Jesus Christ when something absurd, like a car will hit a dog, and you'll yell that out.
I've been wondering why they call him Jesus, because it's Yeshua. I think in Aramaic, is that the right language?
Yeah,
Yeshua,
I
which is
believe.
basically Joshua. Yeshua. So why do they call him
Josh
Jesus
the
and
whole
not
time?
Josh? Like Josh, dude. Sounds like
And
more
Seamus
literal.
would have a problem with this whole conversation if he was here
Come
right
back
now.
to me,
so-
Seamus.
Yeah, I don't know,
100%.
man.
Hey, I figured out where the money's coming from the 3.8 trillion, but I can't figure out where it's going. Not yet, anyway. But it's 1.9 trillion comes from individual income tax. 1.3 trillion comes from payroll tax, and that's the bulk.
Wow.
Just 284 billion came from corporate income tax.
On this tax day, this auspicious of holidays, let me just say that they tax you on the money you earn. They tax you when you spend it. You have to pay a tax for simply owning a house. They tax you on the car you purchase. They tax you on the gas you put in it. They tax you on not just the food you buy, but specific items get extra taxes. They tax everything. I think people don't understand this, that it's like for the average person, what is it, like 50 to 55% of your income goes to taxes? Because they look at income tax and they're like, that's my taxes. But they don't realize you bought a cheeseburger, a portion goes to the government. You bought a house, now you got to pay the government you got to pay government rent. The other thing too is that payroll tax. Ooh, that's brutal. That means you and your employer are splitting. I think it's 15%. So the employer pays 7.5 and you pay 7.5. They are jamming taxes everywhere.
And
it is insane.
The founding fathers, I mean, they revolted because of taxation. No taxation without representation. If you don't know where your money's going, that's a big problem.
Taxes. All right.
I'm trying to find out too. Income tax is relatively new in our country's history, as far as I can tell.
Was it like
I wanna
19?
Yeah, it's
I
in
think
the 1900s.
1917, I think.
Yeah.
Shortly after the Federal Reserve was
it was a tiny percentage only for like the ultra wealthy.
It's supposed to be temporary too, wasn't it?
Right.
And
yeah,
they
they
incrementally
for war or
increased it. Like they slowed the heat of the water up to boil the people. I mean, geez, is it unconstitutional? I don't know. They changed the Constitution to make it legal.
Death tax. Someone brought up death tax. Oh yeah. So like after you've already paid all your taxes, then you die. The government comes and takes even more. That's crazy. Look, man.
How did nobody say like maybe we're going like just for like morale's sake maybe we shouldn't tax them after death like like
Let them have that one at least.
Just give them that, man. Come on.
Well, it's because you're dead. You can't complain.
Like maybe the family members might just be a little bit perturbed when
You guys know I am not a taxation as theft guy, but at a certain point,
Jeez,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's like, I can understand a little bit, but we're overpaying. It's like, imagine if Netflix came to you one day and they were like, we're raising your rates to $100 a month. You'd be like, whoa, hold on there a minute. I'm going to opt out. You can't. And what if I don't want to pay for Netflix anymore? We will lock you in a box. It's like, all right, now I got an issue with how much money you're taking from me by force. Like some money I think is reasonable for all this awesome stuff that we end up having, especially security, the military. Hey, I'm not completely opposed to. Well, hold on. Luke of We Are Change in the chat saying, why in the world is no one saying taxation is theft?
Luke,
We're
did Luke
touching
see
on
the meme that came out on Easter? It's the 3 crosses outside the church, and it's they're all T's, and it spells taxation is theft.
I'll put it this way. It's like, yo, if I have Netflix and it's $10 a month, I'm like, that's reasonable. I think it's fair. Like, I'm getting this service, although I don't have Netflix now because Netflix is weird and creepy. But like, if I was gonna get a subscription service, I got no problem paying for it. But if they came to me one day and they were like, your subscription service is now 10 times more expensive, I'd be like, you're stealing from me.
Yeah.
Like, better yet, they charge your bank account without notifying you, and you don't know why they took the money or where it's going, and they didn't break it down. And then when you say, hey, I challenge this, you can't do that, they go, if you don't pay it, we're gonna lock you in a box.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well,
Yeah,
now,
and if you
now we're
won't
getting
go in
into
the
theft
box,
territory.
then we'll shoot you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If you won't go in the box.
I guess the argument of why taxation isn't theft, Luke, and everyone else that thinks that, is that they're protecting you. You pay. It's basically since the Middle Ages. They go around, they take a little bit of the food the farmers make, or a lot of it, unfortunately, and then they protect the farmers from foreign invaders.
I get that, and I agree. But my point is, like, up to that point, I'm like, yeah, no, that's cool. Like, I like the military, like, cool dudes. But well, I mean, now with all the woke stuff happening, I'm not so sure. But if like someone came to me and said, hey, it's $100 a month for the security that we're gonna be providing because we're all pitching in, I'd be like, that's cool. If one day that guy showed up to my house and like smashed a flower pot and says, you got to give me more money if you want to be safe,
Mafia.
I'd be like, I don't think you're protecting me anymore.
So it's just a protection racket. It's
Right.
just- yeah.
It is. Well,
you have to
guys-
give them the money in an envelope, and
Well, you guys don't like the fact that they're using this money to pay for foreign wars. I don't like the fact that they're using this money to pay for stuff that I don't agree with. I'm pro-life. They're using it to fund abortions. What gives? This is my money that they're taking from me to do this kind of stuff. I don't know.
No, it should.
like-
You're right. It should be decided from the ground up.
Exactly.
There's a guy and he's like, so your monthly bill for your road subscription includes a surcharge for killing babies, for blowing up babies overseas, for
This
making
is-
the weapons that kill the babies.
this
And
is
you're
the
like,
drone
wait,
tax. This
Yeah.
is the drone tax here.
It's like all I wanted was police and a fire department, and they're like, oh yeah, but we got all these fees we got to add on, and then you're like, all right, well, can I add healthcare? No, sorry, we don't offer healthcare. It's like,
But the
come on.
roads.
But the roads. So like that's the thing. It's, you know, if I could trade a lot of, if I'll tell you this, if we could itemize the tax list, I'm sure we could take out a huge chunk and like put it in the garbage, and then take like a little tiny bit, and you get healthcare back for it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying universal healthcare outright for everything. I'm saying a little bit.
Sure. A little. If you guys want to know who's in charge of this, or who created this income tax, IRS Form 1040, it was William Howard Taft. From 1909 to 1913, he was our president. Damn him. Right when the Federal Reserve was formed. I mean, it's just part of the racket. This corporate fascist.
Let's read some more super chats here. Yeah. All right, we got Arthemesia says, if you have to ask a biologist about gender, does that mean gender is biological? Yes. And if you have to ask a Jen Psaki about masks, and she's not a doctor, does that mean masks are an issue for a doctor? Yes.
Good point.
Adrian Contreras says, I cannot compete with the majesty of your beard, sir. I will shave mine in disgrace.
It's beautiful.
All right.
Shame.
Invisible Dud says, Matt Walsh in an alternate reality, quote, what is a man? Answer, this guy's beard. I really like your beard, man.
That's a hit.
Oh, my word.
All right. Jonathan Munoz says, look up an old Whitest Kid You Know sketch, Bike Up the A. It is a great sketch that portrays reality now where you can't have an opinion on something unless you are an expert. Oh, really? That's
I love
funny.
whitest kids you know.
Yeah, I'll check that out. All right. TNHP podcast says, Tim, if you're all right with this question, has anyone on your team besides yourself received death threats? And if they're comfortable with explaining? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's just me.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. Plenty of people that aren't happy with like where I work. People who just
I've been,
take it.
I've been making YouTube videos since 2006, and yeah, you get the most stupid comments and messages from people if you're putting your face on the internet and speaking. It's just part and parcel to the entertainment industry. That's why Paramount Pictures has giant walls surrounding their work environment, because people will come knock. Even if it's not like a death threat, people coming and mobbing you to say hello is also a sort of threat to your ability to move around. So you need to protect your environment. It's a new genre of art, man. We got to take care of ourselves.
And it's not just that. It's, people think whenever something comes up, they're like, those leftists. And I'm like, I got to be honest, it's probably just a guy who thinks that I invented the piano and then I'm hoarding ivory to take over Mount, Bigfoot. And so he's the only one who can save the world from the pending Sasquatch invasion by stopping me. Like, just nonsense, like crazy people.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
That whole pitch was just.
I own that IP. Not Bigfoot, the invasion,
Yes.
pianos. I own it.
The ivory, yeah.
Yeah, actually, someone should make that. That'd be great.
Play us out, Bigfoot.
Bigfoot's not real.
Oh.
All right.
You to think.
David Fitzsimmons says, missed last show live, so I want to say Daryl Davis is the sun and hate speech laws are the wind in the parable to make a man disrobe his coat. I'm not sure what that parable is. What is that one?
So the sun warms people and makes them shed their shields, whereas the wind makes people tighten up and hate.
Oh, I see.
All
All right. Rob Mad says, happy to see y'all made it safely back home. Also, please get Randall Carlson on. Would love a chill podcast for once. And you should look up Tim Pool loses it and attacks a guest by Ping Trip. I don't know what that is. What is that? I lose it and attacks a guest. Is that like a funny edit where I fight somebody?
I agree with Randall Carlson. He's a geologist. He's been studying the flood theory from 13,000 years ago at the end of the Younger Dryas.
Oh, cool.
Be a great Friday guest.
Conti says, Tim, have you seen airline ticket prices? Was looking up for my family of 4, and the ticket costs $36,000 plus. What?
36.
Whoa. I mean, we've ticket prices are a lot. But we'll see how things go. I think that the economy is going to continue to implode. Housing prices, I don't think, will come down. I'm not a financial expert. I'm not an economist. But just based on a lot of stuff that I've seen, I think houses aren't going to come down because material costs are way too high. So they probably can come down a bit, but not as much as people are expecting. There's going to be a crash. I don't know, man. Try building a house right now. See how expensive it is.
I wonder if it gets to a point where somebody owns so many houses and they can't sell any of them because no one has the money or can afford it, and then the houses start to rot. So they're like, we need to drop the prices and get these things out. Otherwise, we're just losing money. But you're saying they might demolish it for the resources.
No. In Ukraine, the cost of a house or like a studio will be $300,000, and a Ukrainian earns something like $400 per month. So they can never buy it. What do? All the oligarchs that own the property rent it out. So you've got permanent tenants who have no choice.
Yeah.
And the rent is not that high, but the buildings aren't in great shape, but the people have no choice.
Yeah, you could argue that having corporations maybe should only own a certain number of houses, that any corporation cannot own more than a certain number of houses.
What if we, like, as a people, like collective, just, what's the right word? Maybe seized the means
of what?
Stuff?
of production.
Oh.
Seize the means of production?
Yeah.
Interesting idea.
And I like the idea. Like, I think it's funny they call it seizing the means of production because, like, who is seizing it? Like, we are. No, you're not.
It's
the
Caesar.
guys with the
It's
guns
Caesar,
are.
dude.
Yeah, and what are the means of production? They mean
Right.
the kulak. I mean,
Well,
that's
this
what they mean.
is funny because I got in an argument with a socialist once, and I was like, "What does that mean, the means of production?" And they're like, like the things to make stuff. And I was like, "Is my camera the means of production? Because I make videos." And they're like, "Well, I guess." And I'm like, "So then someone would take my camera from me?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know. It's your camera." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Then they get into the private property versus personal property
It's
discussion.
ridiculous.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
And what about the stuff that's in your mind? Because that's part of the means of production.
We will take your brains.
With neural net coming.
Yeah.
They're zombies. All right. Wandering Mage says, what do you think of the belief that we need a complete societal collapse to fix our corruption and other societal ills, that there's no cultural change we can make to fix our society in the long term? I hear this view a lot. Well, I don't completely disagree. I think that we as a society have become particularly addicted, and there's a lot of stuff that's ingrained that is bad. The issue is it's not so much about society breaking down to fix it. It's that the two factions have butted off and split from each other. I think the left is a destructive, chaotic force that seeks nothing. I think it's just power for the sake of power, change for the sake of change, people saying random nonsense things for the sake of fitting in with the current thing. And then that's actually separated itself from where we are, which is not overtly conservative. It's more like principled, libertarian, conservative-ish with a spattering of different ideologies mixed in, but retaining a baseline of a moral framework and a goal. So I don't think society needs to collapse, but there may need to be some kind of peaceful divorce where the chaotic destructive force goes off and just spirals out and burns out or something.
I mean, you don't want to collapse. I can tell you that. I saw a collapse in Iraq. It is not good. I mean, it is.
People don't get it.
It is ugly, very ugly. Like a collapse means finding your uncle in a dump, and your kid in a ditch. I mean, that's what collapse means.
Look, collapse could mean if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you've got a farm, waking up one day to a bunch of hipsters running off with your chickens because roving bands of urban liberal types who don't know how to survive are just ransacking.
Also, fire. I mean, geez, have we undervalued the danger of fire and what people can do to a city if they want to light it on fire?
Yeah.
That's collapse. You don't want that.
Yeah.
You saw it.
Oh yeah, I'm agreeing with you for sure. Yep, I saw a meme one time. By the way, I got to bring this up, and it said, who would win, a cow and a lantern or the entire city of Chicago.
Yep.
My favorite meme.
Mrs. O'Leary, right?
Chicago fire, yeah.
It was
Mrs.
so
I think
O'Leary's
that's who
cow.
it is, yeah.
I think that's an apocryphal,
Probably.
but it's a good story.
Tim, you're ruining my
What
meme.
is the exact story? Mrs. O'Leary's? Yes, Mrs. O'Leary's cow. The
Kicked
Great
out.
Chicago Fire. It was 1901.
Burned the whole
Is that what
city.
you're
Yeah, she was like milking it or something, right? And kicked the lantern out of her hand.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people on Earth that don't have electricity still burn kerosene. It's so dangerous. Not only they breathe it in, but it's a fire hazard. I mean, it's a lot of people.
Wow.
All right. Just some guy says, Tim, I was halfway to tears by the end of your conversation with Michael and Jeremy in the best way. Can't describe it. Maybe I needed to hear that conversation and felt God. Thank you.
Great.
P.S. Jean-Luc Picard for a silky rooster. That's pretty good. That was a really fun conversation we had with Jeremy Boring and Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire, asking these questions about philosophy, like and ethics. If you there's a raging river, and there's your dog or a stranger, who would you save if you could only save one?
The stranger.
The stranger.
Yeah.
The interesting question, that the reason that came up is that it used to be that Americans always would say the stranger, but now they say their dog.
And I'm wondering if
That
that's mental
scares me
illness. I
because-
asked the question. No one really could answer that, but is it a form of mental illness that people would protect their pets over a stranger?
Yeah, yes, it's definitely mental illness, and it's also just reflective of how much we hate each other.
Yep.
You know,
I think maybe I would describe it as a natural aberration, in that I don't think you're ill because you love your pet and you want to save what you care about. There's also a point that humans and dogs survived together. So there's an element of survival in attachment to a dog. The issue is that we've come to a point where, in this case, the dog is probably a toy poodle, which is not going to help you survive at all. But the emotional attachment comes from the days of humans hunting with proto-dogs, which are effectively wolves. Now, wanting to save your proto-dog or your German
Horse
Shepherd
or something, yeah.
well, it's like that dog is helping you hunt, sniffing things out. You're surviving. Without it, you could be in trouble. So you need your dog. But now we've artificially selected dogs down to like Chihuahuas, and someone's going to be like frisky, and they're going to jump in the river and save the little toy poodle, and the person isn't going to make
I
it.
wonder how many people would save their car or the stranger.
yeah.
Let me just say, even going back to those periods where it was your dog versus the person would help you survive more. The reason I'd say it's an aberration is that I think it comes from a good place, but whatever it is, this mentality that's taking over will result, without some kind of intervention, technologically or otherwise, in human civilization collapsing. Because you cannot survive if you don't prioritize your own people, your own species, in the event of a catastrophe. Then humans just won't. It's a mathematical equation. Over a long enough period of time, humans who do not prioritize humans will cease to exist.
Yeah.
So
I heard a similar one time really quick that it was a psychological experiment that they put together, and it was if you were wearing your nice clothes or whatever, and you saw a kid drowning, like you're wearing a suit and expensive shoes or whatever, would you just jump in to save the kid, or would you take off, your suit or whatever to do it? And it was the breakdown was like an enormous amount of people were like, yeah, I would take off my suit or my watch or whatever the heck it was.
the suit I can
Take your
understand.
iPhone out of your pocket.
Because you can't swim.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the shoes I'd take off so I could get my web toes out there. But like if their phone in their pocket, would they take the time
it
to
was
get their
that-
phone out of their
yeah,
pocket
it
and
was-
check if they have email before they set it down?
They take out their phone, they selfie them and the kid screaming, and they throw their phone down.
That's what would actually happen.
I still
Gotta get
see-
one for the gram.
Well, do you see that story about the woman who got raped on a train?
No.
In front of people? They all just pulled out their phones.
Oh my gosh,
way.
where was that? What country?
Had to be New
In the
York.
United States.
I just didn't want you to say that.
Pretty sure it was New York.
Oh, man.
I don't know though. Google it. It may have been New York. And everyone just starts filming, and I'm like, well, I mean, nobody wants to fight. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I don't know if I would intervene. You know why? Because you will go to jail.
Yeah, you'll
get
being
accused
sued.
of being, racist or of excessive force. And so what do? You can't be armed. I'll tell you this: in West Virginia, I got nothing to worry about. If I see someone attacking somebody, I'm going to intervene carefully, very carefully. But you've got a lot less to worry about when you're acting in defense of others here versus a place like New York. Was it New York?
Philadelphia. It was October 21, and this on the SEPTA train, people just pulled out their phones.
Yikes.
Man. All right. Bad Adam says, Brett, I'm a paying member of Timcast. Why can't I watch full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on the Timcast website? I don't think I should have to go to Spotify to watch a full episode. Ask Tim.
I have long suggested that we should.
You didn't ask me. Ask me now.
We were talking about. I wanted to put the full episode, like the video version of the episodes, up. Originally, I wasn't sure if it was because of YouTube or Rumble or whatever we were talking. We talked about it at one point about long form content.
Because our show's live,
and
yours is recorded.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, how would we structure that with the clips?
Yeah.
But for the website, we should just put it on. We should use Rumble.
That's one of the first things that I wanted to do. Like once we got to a certain size, was that we would include that, just because I think that it would be good for. I always like push it, like whenever I'm pushing the Spotify link, I'm like, it's all the witty banter that you could. Because like when we cut the segments up, I tend to like trim down areas. Like okay, the conversation really stopped here before we moved into this subject. So
let's put them on Rumble.
Yep.
We'll put them on the website.
Change has been made. We will hopefully be doing that very, very soon.
You guys are involved in the creative process.
Yes, you are.
It.
Is Mary doing articles? Is she going to be doing articles?
Right now, we're just still working to get through the format and get everything organized every day. We've got a good structure now. What she's been doing is she goes onto the cesspool of Twitter, which I just do not dare to go because I don't. Life is too short, and I don't Twitter. So she goes and she'll like look at this is happening today. Like she was finding me stuff at Coachella that I would never have talked about, and so she'll curate some stuff for me, and we may eventually turn that into article writing where she can be like, look at all these people are having this discussion, and then write her piece about it, and then we can involve that in that process. But once we get there, we'll make that work.
Megan Cole says, my husband works in customer support for a small jet company. He said the air isn't recirculated. It is brought in from outside and pressurized for you to breathe, and there's a process for taking it out of the cabin. You are not breathing the same air.
That's
interesting.
Good.
You guys want to know a trick when you're flying commercial? You ever notice that people fart a lot on airplanes? Because the pressure. So they start farting like crazy. Some people, they got it bad. So what you do is you turn on the air vent, but you point it down to your right, creating a force field of air that repels their noxious gases.
All right.
I have learned something truly meaningful today.
It's like the ball at the waterfall. The smell gets stuck on the flowing air and just revolves there.
And it sits right on that person's face. And then when they're going, you're like, you've done this to yourself. All right. Murph Try says, Brent, really enjoyed you and Mary's review of Father Stu. Plan on seeing it soon. Tim, for flags in the room, if a kid brought in a papal flag, it would leave the teacher speechless, like the thing.
Michael Knowles?
So I said on Twitter, we should have teachers should teach kids have religious studies in schools. These kids have questions, and teachers should be allowed to answer them. Teachers should also tell the kids to keep their religious studies a secret from their parents.
Imagine if we had done that there to Don't Say Religion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say God.
Don't say God.
Don't say God, Bill. I actually do think teachers should talk about religion. And the funny thing is, the response I got when I tweeted that was they were like, trans people are real and you can't talk about fake things. And I was like, when did I say anything about trans people? When did I say anything about a specific religion? When did I say the teachers would tell these kids the religions were true? Quite literally, I think if a kid's like, someone told me there's God, it's like, oh yeah, well, we should talk about religions of the world. Why wouldn't you teach kids about various religions? And then if one kid's like, wow, that religion's interesting, it's like, well, you can go talk to your parents about it. But like basic understanding of that, I see no issue with. And that's where they get you on the LGBTQ stuff, is they're trying to pretend like, I'm just trying to let them know that people love each other. But then you see the books they're pushing through and you see like the things they're telling kids. And you're like, it's entirely different. Telling a kid that there is something bigger than all of us, that's hard for me to explain because I'm not a priest, but definitely talk to your parents about it. Why there are people all over the world who do these things is very different from like human sexuality. But even still, the point was more facetious. Like, if you're going to ban this,
If the progressive parent comes into the school and says, why are you teaching religion in your school? You say, I don't know, I'm not a priest.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
There you go. All right, let's grab a couple more here. Mr. Big Bird says, Yeshua was transliterated. There was no yeah, so it became Ia, Shua. Shua was a feminine name suffix, so it became sus. The I later turned into J, and the pronunciation shifted. I remember the first time when I was a little kid, I saw someone named Jesus. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I didn't understand. I was like really young.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? Did your parents name you Jesus?" And he's like, "My name's Jesus." And I was like, does that mean Jesus?
Yeah, it does.
Yes. I'm like, oh, cool.
It's like Joshua.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what we got here. Last one. Jeremy Lewis says, Brooklyn Democratic Party leaders are trying to prevent Rep Your Black candidates from serving on the Dem County Committee. What is it? Your Block? Rep Your Block candidates. Oh, sorry. On the Democrat County Committee in coordinated filing of objections, blocking common people from being Democratic candidates. Of course, they don't want what happened to the Republican Party to happen to them. That would freak them out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, become a member, because we're going to have a members-only show coming up. It'll be published around 11 p.m., and you won't want to miss it. As a member, you're keeping our journalists employed, and that's the end goal. And doing shows like Pop Culture Crisis and expanding the business, it's all thanks to you guys as members. So we are doing a lot. We have some big updates. One of the things we're doing behind the scenes right now is we are, I'll just put it this way, participating in creating resilient infrastructure to end cancel culture. I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but trust me, when it's not just about the content, it is about everything we're doing from the bottom up. We are doing some restructuring in terms of the website in a way that will help counter the big tech powers and control. So we'll explain this in due time, but maybe even this week we'll be able to have an update for you on that. So again, timcast.com. Braxton, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, braxtonmccoy.com. If you're interested in learning stuff about mountains and first aid and going hunting and that kind of stuff, you can go to bunkhouse.braxtonmccoy.com and sign up. And we've got a course list there, and more courses will be set up here in the next couple of weeks.
Right on.
Guys, you cannot find me on Twitter because life is too short, but you can find me on Instagram at Brett Dasovic. But also, please go to the YouTube channel and follow Pop Culture Crisis there. We just had our 100th episode that will be coming out tomorrow. We are very excited. The show is growing, and it's been a joy for me, really an honor and a pleasure. It's also on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, all those formats. Just go and follow the show, and thank you guys so much.
Ian Crossland, check me out at iancrossland.net if you want to get in touch or follow my stuff. Braxton, good to meet you, man.
You too, man.
I want to remind people, point to the glass factory.
Yeah, you can pick that up on braxtonmccoy.com or Amazon.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks very much for coming this evening, Braxton. I do have to say that Brett is a great host of Pop Culture Crisis. I am on there on Wednesdays. We have a lot of fun. We pull up a few articles that we don't usually cover on IRL, which is always great. I love to change things up a little bit and talk about something different. You guys may follow me on Twitter and minds.com at sourpatchlids, as well as sourpatchlids.me.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Before you go, make sure you check out youtube.com/Chicken City. Mm-hmm. I think the funniest thing was that when we were hanging out with Brett Cooper from the Daily Wire, they come into the trailer and I'm like, have you seen Chicken City? And she's like, oh, I was watching that earlier. Yeah. And I was like, oh, cool. She's like, I didn't realize that was you guys. It just popped up on YouTube. I started watching it because it's relaxing. And I'm like, yes. The meme, the joke is that people are saying they want Chicken City to get more concurrent viewers than Joe Biden on his next speech or whatever. And I'm like, it's a joke, but it would be good for Chicken City, so I will accept it. All right, everybody. We'll see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye, guys.